Okay, I've got 7. I was going to do a roll call, and then we'll get started, okay? All right, and I'm recording. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to do a quick roll call of the commission members. We have a lot of agenda items this evening, so I will ask that each person, as you are presenting, please introduce yourself, as you usually would for any of our meetings and hearings. And then once I do the roll call, then we will start the regular meeting. Patrick Carrier.
Here.
Thank you. Mike Rabulis.
I'm here.
Barbara Brenneman.
Present.
Matt Pogson.
Here.
Inez St. James.
Here.
Marcy Schwartz. Okay, I don't think I haven't seen Marcy sign on, so. Scott Halstead.
Here.
Thank you. And John Vibert.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barbara Brenneman. I'm Chair of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission for the Town of Farmington. I welcome you to our October 26th meeting. I would call for Inez to do the call to order, please.
Thank you. Town of Farmington, Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Town Plan and Zoning Commission will hold an online public hearing Monday, October 26, 2020 at 7 p.m. on the following applications. Farmington Commons LLC, application for change of zone for 790 Farmington Avenue from BR to FC/FV. RPG Farmington Commons LLC, application for special permit for residential use at units 1, 4A, and 4B at 790 Farmington Avenue. JDA Farmington LLC, application for special permit and site plan approval to relocate existing building and construct a new bank at 784 Farmington Avenue, FC/FV zone. At these hearings, interested persons may be heard. A copy of these proposals is online at https://www.farmington-ct.org/departments/planning-and-zoning/pending-applications, or please call the Planning Department at Farmington Town Hall at 860-675-2325. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 8th day of October, 2020. Town Plan and Zoning Commission, Barbara Brenneman, Chair.
Thank you, Inez.
You're welcome.
Before we begin the agenda, would you please join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic for
stand
which it stands,
One
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin, I want to announce it appears Keith Vibert will not be here this evening. That means that, Scott, you'll be sitting in for Keith.
For Marcy.
I'm sorry?
For Marcy, the regular member.
I thought it was Keith that could not be here tonight.
Correct, he's an alternate, so he's
And Scott's going to sit in.
for Marcy, because Marcy's the regular member that's not in attendance.
So we have 2 missing.
Correct, but only
we
one.
need 2 alternates?
No, because Keith's an alternate, he was the first alternate, he's not here tonight to sit in for Marcy, so Scott's sitting in.
I'm misunderstood
So,
you.
yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I apologize. Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Marcy may show up, is that what we don't know at this point?
It's possible, but we haven't heard one way or the other, and she's not logged in at this particular point in
Okay,
time.
thank you.
So we'll move ahead assuming not, and we'll leave Scott in place
We'll go according to the agenda. Commissioners, we will vote on each item as we address it. And when you begin to speak, please identify yourself so that notes can be taken. Thank you. We'll begin new business with 276 Main Street, LLC, sign application for 276 Main Street.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I'm here.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
So go ahead, please introduce yourself and discuss what you're proposing to do for your application.
My name is Abby Delalis. I am the owner of 276 Main Street LLC, which holds the property of 276 Main Street in Farmington. We would like to add signage to the front of the building. We've gotten several requests from our tenants who are looking for some more signage. So we came up with the proposal that I believe you can see on the screen. So we'd like to present it to the town for their approval.
Okay,
Comments, commissioners?
cycle through everybody. Let's cycle through everyone like we regularly.
Patrick?
No comments.
Michael?
Just confirming it's just this one sign, the Heritage Barbershop sign.
So that is, sorry. So on the front of the building, I don't know if you could see 4 name writers. I wanted to just present to the panel what one of the signs would look like. They will all look pretty similar to that, but there'll be 4 signs because there's 4 tenants in the building, 3 tenants on the bottom and 1 tenant on top. And we want to make sure we have a spot for each tenant. And it will be pretty uniform depending on, font and graphics, but it's going to be those 2 colors only, that black and white, because we do want it to, look sleek and, we don't want to do multicolors. I know the building originally had, when we purchased the building about 5 years ago, signage on the building that had different colors and things like that. And it was always our intent to put the signage back, but we really wanted to give it a better look and a more uniform look, which is why we came up with this design.
Okay, great. Thank you. No further questions.
Matt?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Inez?
No questions. It looks like it fits within our guidelines, and I like that they'll be uniform.
Scott?
No questions. Looks good.
John?
No questions.
The only question I have is this is plus the barber pole outside? This is an addition? Now, how about sign requirements? Are we still within the realm? Are they removing any of the ladder signs that are out of the driveway?
No, because it's separate requirements, attached signage versus detached signage. So the attached sign is allowed with the square footage. There's 1 square foot per linear foot of building. The building length is roughly 60 feet, so they would have 60 square footage of building sign, which is separate from what they can have from a detached standalone sign.
Okay, just to exclude everybody. Are there anything additional you might like to add to your application?
The only thing I would really like to stress, obviously with the pandemic and our tenants and the vacant space, we have the whole 2nd floor that's vacant right now. When I've showed the space, people are really looking for signage. So it really is important to the current tenants and also for the space that we've had vacant for over a year now. So we're really trying to please the tenants and rent some spaces as well.
Any other concerns from the commissioners?
No.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to consider for this application, please.
This is Ines St. James. I make a motion to approve the sign application for 276 Main Street as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Mike Rebola, second.
Any additional conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Thomas Douglas, Eagle Scout.
Thank you very
Project.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Douglas Eagle Scout Project to build bird blind at West District School.
Thomas, you there?
Hello.
There you go. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So if you can, please, obviously introduce yourself and then explain to the commission what it is that you would like to do. I have obviously this drawing for you, and I have your construction drawings as well. So if you'd like me at any point to move to the construction drawings, I can certainly do that. Just let me know. But if you could just do a quick explanation to the commission as to what you're looking to do for your project, okay?
All right. My name is Tommy Douglas, and I'm a Boy Scout from Troop 170. I would like to request permission to make a bird blind at West District School. The bird blind's purpose would be to help kids learn about field and wildlife while also having a place to gather outdoors for the new outdoor style school that they're doing. The structure itself will be on sticks, cement pillars that are 3 feet into the ground to make sure it's sturdy. And its overall dimensions will be about 10 wide, 5 deep, and 7 feet tall.
Anything else you want to add at this point, or is that it?
I believe that will be about it.
Okay, we will open it up to questions.
Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I think I know this answer, but so it's going to sit on those pillars, and then it's probably going to be anchored to them as well, because you know, the wind and all that.
Yes, it will be anchored to the pillars with brackets.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No further questions. I think this is pretty cool.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Mike?
No, this is a pretty cool project. This is very nice of you to put this together. It looks like a lot of thought went into it. The only question I have for town staff is that the town's okay with this?
Yes, so the prospective Eagle Scout did his homework, and we have sign off from both West District School, the Board of Ed office, and our Director of Public Works looked at it as well, and he's added, he's made any requests that were made have been included, so he's all set.
Great, thank you. Good job.
Matt?
No, I had the same question as Mike. It looks good. Excellent project. Thank you.
Inez?
I too like everything about this, so thank you very much, Tommy. My only question, just as a curiosity, is in the future, will the Boy Scouts, the troop, check in to maintain it or make sure it's in good condition? What is the plan?
So after it's constructed, the Boy Scouts are not allowed to maintain it afterwards, so it would be up to the school to maintain it.
And they know that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you very much. I love it.
Scott?
No, I think it's well done. It's a great idea. Thanks so much, Tommy.
John?
One question, and I think I know the answer, so this is just a clarification. But on your map, you've laid out 3 locations, but in fact, you're only going to build one bird watch at one of those locations?
Yes, only one will be constructed at location 3, the blue one.
That's what I thought, yes. My compliments to you. It's a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas, would you like to add anything to your presentation? You don't need to, just want to make sure if you have anything to say.
I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, I need a motion on this piece of new business, please.
It's Ines St. James. I make a motion to approve the Eagle Scout project from Tommy Douglas to build bird line at West District School as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Scott Halstead, I second.
Any further discussion from the commissioners? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Thank you.
You're all set, Tommy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support and your approval.
Zhang Li, accept application for special permit to raise hens at 28 Robin Road, R20 zone, and schedule a public hearing with a recommended hearing date of November 9th, 2020. I need a motion, please.
It's Ines St. James. I make a motion to accept the application from Zhang Li for special permit to raise hens at 28 Robin Road, R20 zone, and schedule public hearing date of November 9th, 2020.
Have a second, please.
Patrick Carrier, I second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to public hearings. The first public hearing is Farmington Commons LLC, application to change the zone for 790 Farmington Avenue from BR to FC/FB. You have a presenter?
Wait, Mr. Hohab, are you taking the lead on this?
No, I think he was doing Metro.
There we go. Is that better?
There we
Okay.
go.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm Christian Hoeb. My office address is 314 Main Street here in Farmington. With me for this presentation is David Accolini, Alan Bongiovanni, and Mark Marzi. Hopefully with this approval, we'll then move on to a special permit application that pertains to the same building and area. This is, as you've heard, is 790 Farmington Avenue. We are particularly focused on buildings 1 and 4 that are wholly owned by the applicant. For purposes of the record, the sign was posted October 2nd. All residents were mailed notice on October 9th. I have provided Ms. Michaud with receipt notices together with a signed certification of service, and the notice was published. So by way of background, these spaces have been used typically for office space, and we're requesting that there be a zone change from BR, of course, to the Farmington Center Zone and Farmington Village District Zone. And by way of background, to explain those zones, because we have a number of new members, these zones were established in 2015, and they were a result of very public meetings that were well advertised, and many people from the community participated. They were conducted at Miss Porter's. They were kind enough to allow the town to use the space. And there was a free dialogue back and forth what folks in town wanted in the zone, because it really serves as the gateway to the town. And it was important to maintain historical character and to blend the notion of work, live, and play. And so the community, again, fully participated with staff. It was actually a really neat experience to interact with neighbors and friends over how we saw this important area and how it should develop. So from that were a series of reports that were approved, and that led then to the zone. And so we're looking to convert this office space to 6 units per building of residential. They're 1-bedroom apartments. We do have the support of the association. They met, they convened, they had a formal vote. I've submitted the minutes to staff approving or supporting the zone change. And I like this use. It's a less intense use. It's a good use of the space. And it's really consistent with what we want in the community, I think. I mean, that's what the zone is for. It certainly blends in and is supported by the plan of development. And, you know, just a few weeks ago, Rose Ponte, our economic development leader, was talking about the need for apartments in town. That was like a dire need to help support our corporate entities and our bioscience corridor. And she stressed it pretty freely that this was like a major need, that much of our inventory is older. And so we think this really fills a need, and without putting a drain on town resources. These are not big oversized units that'll accommodate families and pouring kids into the school system. It looks to me like they'll support young professionals. So I think it's a really good use and consistent with what the folks in town wanted, and then what our regulations provide. So I don't have a lot more than that. I'm certainly willing, if anyone has questions. As I mentioned, I have Mr. Accolini and Alan and Mr. Marcy here. We'll probably get into more substance with the special permit in terms of the nuts and bolts, but we're simply asking for a zone change at this point. And I submit it's really appropriate. So that's it.
Talk to the commissioners. Patrick?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions at this time.
Matt?
My question is more for staff. I was curious about if this was to go forward, what do we have to, we're allowed to, this is kind of like the morph zone where we have the ability to add extra regulations if necessary, like the setbacks, for instance. There's we have 0 setbacks in some of this this zone, and this is abutting residential area, so that we do have the ability to have a B buffer, I believe. I believe that's what staff had said. Is that something that we need to talk about now during the zoning change, or something that would be discussed when it specifically comes in for the site plan?
That's part of the special permit and site plan use. So that would be the second public hearing. So this is just, at this point, focusing on the appropriateness of the zone change and this, you know, from BR to Farmington Center, Farmington Village.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have for questions.
Sure.
Inez?
No questions for the applicant. I agree that we need more, I don't want to say affordable, but we definitely need housing that's not large and it's more appropriate for different demographic. Question for you, Shannon. Is this in this area, is this the last parcel that's BR, or are there others?
I think a good bit of it is B1 across the street and even down the street. So this was a pocket that was BR. The rest of it is B1. And I had explained that the nomenclature on the zoning map had been indicated incorrectly. It actually, when we go back and research our files, it is BR. But some of the other properties across the street and further down on Farmington Avenue are B1.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Scott?
No questions. I like the idea of less intense in the area and increasing our residential area downtown. I think it's great.
John?
When I visited this area, it seemed like from the signage that these buildings had a lot of commercial enterprises in there. So my question is, are you going to have to be moving companies out? And is there a way to do that in a methodical way so that their business isn't impacted?
John, that's helpful, that question, because I probably failed to mention this. B1, I'm sorry, only buildings 1 and 4 are subject to the zone change, and they're wholly owned by the applicant. So we're
No,
not looking at,
Chris, I'm going to correct that. The entire property is the zone change. The entire property is, so the zone change runs with the property, not with the buildings.
oh,
So the entire-
I understood we were doing just the buildings, but, okay,
No,
okay.
no. The entire property is the zone change. It runs with the property. And then separate to that is the special permit for the uses for the building,
Separate application.
which is a separate application. But the zone change runs with the property, the entire property. And that's, I believe it's what's documented in the, on the application and also in the meeting notes that we got from the association.
So the only ones that are intended for residential use, there are buildings 1 and 4.
So my question is, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to bring this up, maybe at a later time, but my question is, are there commercial enterprises in buildings 1 and 4 that are going to have to be moved out? And is there a plan to do that in a methodical way so that those buildings don't go under, those companies don't go under?
David?
Yeah, can I jump in?
Yes.
Can you hear me? This is David Occhiolini. I am the member of the applicant. We have purchased buildings 1 and 4 and then another miscellaneous unit in building 3. Buildings 1 and 4 right now are 100% vacant. So there will be no moving out of any businesses that are currently existing. The plan, as Chris and Shannon have laid out, is for us to get the zone change to allow this use in the zone, for us to convert buildings 1 and 4 to residential use, and then the association wishes to maintain buildings 2 and 4 at this time as commercial use only. Long term, if we were to acquire more of the buildings, we may come back and seek to add some other residential units. But at this time, it is specifically only for buildings 1 and building 4. And even if we were to pursue this further down the road in conversation with the association, we are not looking to mix uses within a building. So building 1 and 4 would be 100% residential. Right now, buildings 2 and 3 would be 100% commercial. And if 2 or 3 were to convert, they would convert 100% to residential and leave commercial. They're just trying not to have the mixed use within the same buildings.
So right now, the buildings that you're looking to make residential are in fact empty.
They are vacant, yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any further questions. Do you have anything?
Madam Chair, this is Matthew
Excuse-
Pogson. I had
Just a
a,
minute.
oh,
Wait a
sorry,
minute,
I apologize. I apologize.
This is a public hearing. So let's hear from the public next, please. Is there anybody here for this application? If you are, please raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you.
Okay. And I will just remind everyone that for now, we're speaking of the zone change.
Strictly the zone change.
So, and I've got 2 attendees. So, Jay, you should be allowed to speak at this point.
Thank you, Shannon. This is Jay Bumbar, 13 Mountain Road, Farmington. I'm actually waiting for another matter on the agenda, but just hearing this, it did raise a few questions for me. The first is simply, since it applies to the entire parcel, so is this the association is applying for this zone change, or you have the permission of the owner?
Correct. We have
Okay.
all the appropriate documentation, and the association president signed the application.
Great, okay. And then I just want to say that I agree. I think that getting some residential units in here would be fine. And that's what we want to encourage in this area, as I think some of the other applications will show. So thank you, that's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
yeah, and we have Portia Corbett.
Hi. I am also, like Jay, waiting for something else, but I wanted to say that I think that this is a really good use for this building. David Accolini being right next door to it, I know that it will be maintained, it will be taken care of well. And there's a brook back there. I know David will take care of that also. And I was glad to hear Mr. Hoheb say that it's important to maintain the character of this whole area, because I think that's a very important thing. And I for this, I think this is a good idea. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Back to the commissioners. Anyone else have further comments? Patrick?
No comments.
Mike?
No comments.
Matt?
Yes, I wanted some clarification. When the question had been brought up about the first buildings 1 and 4, Mr. Hoheb seemed to think that it was going to be just those buildings and not the entire property. Usually, to be very honest, Mr. Hoheb is on top of everything, so I'm surprised that he wasn't quite sure on that one. And I want to just make sure that we're making sure that the other condominium associate people know that that entire property is being changed. And I know that Shannon specifically said that they signed off on it just now. But can I hear clarification from Mr. Hoheb that they do understand that it's the entire property and that it is not just the front 2 buildings that will be part of this?
Chris, can I jump in?
Yes.
Again, Dave Roccolini. We had 2 or 3, much like these online meetings with the association, all members to discuss this. And they are fully understanding that the entire parcel is going into the zone change in order to meet the zone that's surrounding it. They realize that they're essentially an island of this BR or B1. I'm not sure what exactly it is right now. So they have no objection to moving into the zone. The next step to take it into a residential use was specifically for buildings 1 and building 4. But yes, they are very well aware that the entire parcel will go into the Farmington Center zone.
Okay, thank you. And the buildings that are remaining as office space and whatnot, that all of the businesses that are in there fall within the acceptable parameters of what is in the Farmington Center zone currently? Has that been clarified to make sure that none of those businesses are not something that's allowed in that area?
I defer to Shannon on that. I assume that they're grandfathered simply by their use, but.
Well, they're all office uses, so office use is a permitted use in the Farmington. When you compare the 2, office use is permitted and they're all office uses, so it's permitted.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. That's all. Thank you for the clarification, everyone.
Thank you.
Inez?
That was awesome. Thank you. I had similar questions. I was a little confused, but that's perfect. Thank you.
Scott?
No comments, thank you.
John?
My only comment is that this movement is exactly the direction that the people were talking about back in 2015. So thank you for doing it.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment?
Yes, we've got
Another hand?
another hand up. Jack Kemper, I think, did I get, yep. Yeah, Jack Kemper, go ahead.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm actually have an office there. I'm the president of the association. And I just wanted to confirm that we had a lot of meetings. We think this is a good direction for the association, gives us all flexibility with the values of our units. So we are on board.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Would you like to make any further comments on this application before we close the hearing?
Nothing further.
Thank you.
All right, hang on, just make sure, I want to make sure that I'm not missing.
You're not missing anyone.
Yeah, I don't see any hands up, so, okay.
Okay, then I will close this public hearing, and we'll move on to a motion on this public hearing of Farmington Commons LLC. Have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, it's Inez St. James. I make a motion to approve the application from Farmington Commons Association, Inc. to change zone from BR to FC-FV for property located at 790 Farmington Avenue.
May I have a second, please?
Matt Pogson, I second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next public hearing, which is RPG Farmington Commons LLC, an application for special permit for residential use at units 1, 4A, and 4B at 790 Farmington Avenue.
Okay, this pertains to buildings 1 and 4 only. Again, for the record, Madam Chair, I'm Christian Hoeb. My address is 314 Main Street here in Farmington. With me is David Occolini, Alan Bongiovanni, and Mark Marzi. We're seeking a special permit for residential use at 790 Farmington Avenue, Unit 1A, and 4A and B, which are essentially buildings 1 and 4. And as you just heard, those buildings are now vacant. The sign was posted on this matter October 2nd. Certified mail was delivered or sent October 9th. Receipts for that certified mail have been provided to staff, and I have also filed a certification of service. Notice was published in the Current. And so you've heard my little brief dissertation about the history of the zone, and I'd ask that you incorporate that as an element of the testimony this evening. We're converting office space to residential use, and let's see. We think this is a less intense use, as I explained earlier. I'm not aware of any staff objection. We have been working with staff for quite some time on this. The one issue was relating to a buffer area, and certainly we'd like to be heard regarding that, but I'm not aware of any objection of staff, nor have I heard from any neighbor objecting to this application. And I'm going to just turn it over to Alan very briefly to talk about the site, and then over to Mark Marzi to talk a little bit about the architecture. Alan, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Chris. Good evening. The subject property is 2.25 acres. It's currently developed. The parking and infrastructure are in place. There are 4 existing buildings. This proposal before you does not require any improvements to the land to make this development work to convert it to residential uses. All the access to the buildings, the utility services are to the buildings. One of the things that by changing the use, it actually reduces the parking count. Currently, in its current configuration as office use, given the square footage that we have, 71 parking spaces are required. When buildings 1 and 4 are allowed to be, or if they are allowed to be converted to residential use, the total parking requirement for the site is 55, so it reduces by 16 spaces, of which we meet either standard, but it shows you how it relieves the intensity in the area by letting this become residential apartments as opposed to all office space. I think that's in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but there are no improvements proposed as it is a currently developed site, and we're going to work within the confines of the buildings themselves.
Madam Chair, if I may just ask Al a question. Al, you're aware of the staff raising at least the issue about the B buffer. Do you have any thoughts about that for the commission?
If you go back, Shannon, I think you're controlling, there it is, that sheet there. So the property on the northern part or the upper part of the sheet is owned by the applicant, David Aquilani, or one of the applicants. And I'm gonna move things around on my screen so I can keep up with it. The text there, if you stop there, the text that says now formerly Farmington Commons Office Condominium, there's a squiggly line around it. It's an existing wooded buffer there. It's at areas 50 feet in depth, and some areas there's a little more than 50 feet in depth. I'm not sure that it is all of the best quality of buffer for year-round coverage, but nonetheless, there's a 50-foot existing vegetated buffer in that area. Speaking with Mr. Aquilani, he expressed a desire to, as necessary, enhance some plantings in that area, but we haven't come forth with anything concrete at this point.
Okay. Mr. Marzi?
Good evening, everyone. Mark Marzi. Our office is at 772 Farmington Avenue. The architectural work primarily consists of all interior work. The only exterior work that would be done was some modification to a few of the windows to meet any egress requirements, as well as some interactions with interior partitions that are happening. There will be no structural changes to any of the exterior walls, roofs, or dormers of any sort. If you look at sheet A201, that sheet highlights, this is not the updated sheet. Do you have the updated one that there's the one that we submitted. This shows all of the exterior work that's being changed. So most of the windows, if they need to be modified, they're being replaced. There are just a couple new windows and a couple windows that are going to be removed. Other than that, there is no additional work, and we feel that all of the changes that were made keep intact with the architectural characteristics of the buildings. All of the siding will be matched to the existing. And that's about all the work that we're getting done here.
Thank you. Madam
Ready?
Chair, yep, I think that's it. That concludes our evidence portion of the presentation.
Thank you. I'll move to the commissioners for questions and comments. Patrick?
Yeah, Patrick Carrier here. Yeah, no, I mean, it was just on the buffer. I mean, we don't have any pictures of what that buffer looks like. I mean, with the zone change, it changes the requirements. So I know it's quite large, right? You said, is it 50 feet, I believe you said?
It is 50 feet.
But what does that look like from ground level okay. And do have any of the neighbors?
Patrick, you cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, internet connection. Yeah, no, so I don't know which part you heard, but it was just, my question was more on the buffer and what it looks like, and if there was any feedback from the neighbors, with regards to that buffer.
Well, so in response to that, the David Aquilani is the principal of the applicant, and so he is the neighbor. May I make a suggestion, because I have a thought that may give the commission some comfort. Would you consider allowing staff to go out there and evaluate it with the applicant and do an actual walkthrough and then make a recommendation? I mean, I think we could close the hearing subject to staff's recommendations and ratification by the commission. But, we'd like time to at least meet with staff and walk through it. We don't want to take down trees to put up trees. And I'm sure the applicant would like a nice buffer too, both for his residents and for his new future tenants. So there's no hidden ball trick here. I'm not trying to bamboozle the commission. I just think a practical resolution is have the applicant and staff walk it and make a recommendation without holding up the hearing.
Chris, can I throw a little bit in too, please?
Yes.
Again, this is David Occhialini. It's fortunate that we have Jack in on this hearing. I didn't realize he was coming in tonight, which is great. Again, Jack is the president of the association, and we have had more than one conversation on this specific issue. The buffer as it exists right now is a lot of undergrowth, a lot of old shrubs, some dead trees, and I've been the neighbor here for the better part of 8 years. And as we acquired buildings 1 and 4 here, I did approach Jack and say, at some point in the future, I want to improve the buffer myself for my benefit as the neighbor, not as the owner of this property. And the theory being is to go in there and cut out some of the underbrush and plant some better trees and shrubs that'd be more in tune with keeping a buffer. I just don't have a plan for that right now, and it wasn't necessary for the association to even undertake that as part of this process. So Jack and I at the time did agree that it makes sense. At least he can confirm that on his side. But it was something that we just didn't really want to muddy the waters with right now, since we were essentially the owners on both sides of the line.
Thank you, David.
Okay. What I'd suggest is let's get through the rest of the commissioner questions and public comment, and then it may be helpful to take a look at, and Chris, maybe you want to take a look at it while we're going through this, the last paragraph of the agenda review, and then we can land on a final thought regarding this, but it might be helpful to get through everybody's comments.
Who's next, Mike?
Yeah, we
Mike?
just got to Patrick.
I'm all set for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt?
So my question is, if we required a bee buffer yard, that would help to preserve that area. If we did not require it, and let me clarify that, if we were to require it, we could leave that up to the staff to determine if what's existing is meeting the bee buffer yard requirements. Is that correct understanding, Shannon?
Correct, or we can simply just say what's there. We can inventory what's there and say, you know, in general, this is satisfying the bee buffer yard, and leave it at that, or we could report back, yes.
Okay, if, just to clarify though, if we don't require the bee buffer yard, then there could potentially be a 0-foot setback?
Correct, because the way this reads, it says the rear yard, because it would not be 0. At the side, it would be. This would be the rear yard. So the rear yard is 10 feet unless abutting a residential zone where the commission may require a bee buffer yard. So it's not a shall, it's a may.
Okay.
But it's the rear, so at a minimum, there has to be a 10-foot building setback, and then it's whether or not the commission chooses that this is appropriate for the bee buffer yard. And there's varying widths, I think I had mentioned 35, because the 35 leaves you at a 1-to-1 ratio then of the plantings, and but there are a variety of widths, and then with those widths, it changes the density of planting.
So can I just summarize that and tell me if I'm correct? So if we were to do a bee buffer yard under these circumstances, it would be a buffer yard of approximately 35 feet based off of your calculations, a 35-foot setback basically because of the buffer yard?
Correct. So it would function, the buffer yard then would then become the setback, right? Unless they came back in to modify with a site plan review to modify the buffer. So the bee buffer yard has a variety of widths. Like I said, I had written 35 because it leaves it at a 1-to-1 planting ratio.
Okay. And what, and if we do not require the B buffer yard, then it will be a minimum of requirement of 10 feet instead of 35.
Correct, because that's the minimum requirement for the building setback, correct.
Okay, thank you. That is my only question. Actually, let me ask Mr. Hoheb and, I'm sorry, Mr. Aquilini, is there any objection to having the B buffer yard setback, or is that something that you've deemed acceptable for this?
As it sits right now, there is an existing buffer that's in excess of 35 feet. So from my perspective, there's none. Again, Jack, the president of the association, is on the call. I don't know if it's allowable to have him weigh in right now. If the association doesn't have an issue with it, I certainly don't.
Okay, we'll get to where I'd like to try to leave our public comment. So Mr. Kemper comment is part of the public comment if we can, so that we can keep this organized. Thank you.
Then there are no further questions from me. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Inez?
Thank you. I'm looking at the agenda and then obviously the documentation. So we're talking about buildings 1 and 4, or is there an A and a B?
There are units A and B within buildings 1 and 4. So they were divided at one point into 2 office spaces, so that's why but it's the entirety of building 1 and the entirety of building 4.
Okay, so it's 1 and 4, forget the A and B, that's on the agenda.
Well, it's fine, that's how it's legally identified, so it's fine.
Okay. I don't have any, I understand where you're going, Shannon, thank you. I don't have any new questions. I definitely, me, myself, and I definitely feel like having a buffer yard is the way to go. Overall, I think it improves the look of the project and the separation, but I don't have any new questions.
Thank you. Scott?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
John?
So regarding the buffer zone, I'm very comfortable with the 35-foot or 35-plus foot buffer that's in place, and I don't have any issues with that at all. My only question is, and it's more of a curiosity than a necessity, but what's the timetable here? When do you think people are going to be moving into these apartments?
Chris, I'll answer.
Yes.
So once these approvals are obtained, I have to go back and speak with Jack at the association and the council for the association, and we have to modify the bylaws as they are written, because they are now written specifically for office use. So we want to modify those to make sure that we address the residential concerns. I don't expect that as a long process, but as soon as that is completed, we are ready to turn this over, and we have about a 6-month window from the time we start to the time the units are ready. So, I mean, theoretically, we could have the work starting here the beginning of the year and should be done by summer.
Thank you.
Miss Barbara Brenneman, I have a couple of questions. Is this building sprinklered?
Mark, you want to address that sprinkler comment?
Currently, it is not, but it will have to be.
Will the fire marshal expect it to be sprinkled once it's made residential?
Yes.
Does that have to do with the height of the existing building? Is that? How does that determination take place?
That has to do with the amount of residential units within a building.
Okay. And I think I heard you say some of the windows were replaced for egress. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is it up on the third? Is it three stories high?
It's 2.5 stories. So there's 2 of the second floor units have lofts in them. So those dormers up there are the lofted units.
Okay. Now, is that a place where you had to change windows up in those loft areas?
No.
Oh.
On the end wall there is one,
Okay.
not within the dormers themselves.
Okay. Now, is there any plan in the rewriting of the documents to include the condominium sale option, a unit sale as a condominium in the new bylaws? Or are they strictly rentals? Or are you
Strictly
gonna
rental
try-
units.
You're gonna keep them as rentals? You're not gonna propose a sale unit on them? Not at this time, is that what you're telling me?
No, they're strictly rental units. There is nothing here for sale.
Okay. That's all I have for now. This is a public hearing, and so if there's anyone that's here, raise your hand and you'll be acknowledged if you'd like to take part in this discussion. Maybe Jack Kemper would like to take part?
Okay, well, right now we've got Jay Bombara, so
Okay.
we'll start with Jay.
Okay.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Barbara. So, my prior comments do stand. And again, I just trying to understand a little bit about what's happening here. So I know we just had a hearing and approval to change the zone. And so this application is simply to change the use of the buildings?
Correct, 2 of the 4 buildings.
So does that give this commission the authority, because you already have an existing site, if you will, and as far as I can tell, there are no changes, at least significant changes being made to the footprints of any of the buildings or anything for that matter, any of the improvements. So does the commission have the authority to make or ask or require additional changes to the site?
I'm not sure I understand, only to the extent, with respect to the buffer yards. So those buffer yards change and how they want to have that addressed for the record. So we understand moving ahead. So 5 years from now, somebody cuts all the trees down, I can say, well, it was approved with a buffer yard or it wasn't. So from that standpoint, and then from a parking stand, the only other thing would be parking, and they are meeting the parking requirements. So from a site standpoint, no other changes are being proposed, and there's nothing there that would require it based on our review.
But again, I don't mean to get too far down the weeds here, but so the buffer is up for discussion because of the change in use or because of the change in the zone?
Because of the change in the zone, but it's germane from a site plan. And when you just change the zone, right, we were looking at it from a zone change standpoint as we need to. And then now that we are looking at this with respect to, how is this pertaining to this parcel? And we are looking at residential uses, then we are reviewing this as part of the site plan and special use permit change for this application.
Right. So my only point, I'm not suggesting the commission needs to or wants to, but if they looked at this site, could they impose additional requirements on the site under their authority now that this is in the Farmington Village Zone?
I'm not really sure where you're going with this, Jay, so I'm sorry. I'm finding the question confusing because it's zoning compliant. It's from a parking standpoint. There's the buffer yard there. If they were to come in and have whole scale changes to the property from a site plan standpoint, then we would look at it against the Farmington Center, Farmington Village regulations from a site standpoint, but that's not what's before us this evening.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying is I'm getting confused that we're talking about the buffer, but yet why is that and not talking about anything else? And I don't really have
I don't think
any
there
axe
is
to grind, or I'm
anything
not
else
looking
that-
for anything. I'm trying to follow how this
Okay.
all, very.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything else because all the other setbacks are fine. So from a dimensional standpoint, as we're looking at, all the other setbacks are fine. The parking is fine. There isn't a lighting concern here. It's an existing property. It's not a new build. So it was conforming before, it's conforming now.
Yep.
So that's the only reason. Now that we've changed the zone, I need them to give me guidance as to how everything else, obviously, they come in and change lighting, then they're gonna have to come back before the commission and have new, or they change the parking configuration, then that will all come back before the commission at that time. But because this is left to the commission discretion for the side yard and rear yard, there's a discretion there as to how the commission wants to have the setbacks apply. I need it itemized as to how this is being approved. There's no other portion of the regulation that says the commission may, that applies to this particular application. This is the only thing that does apply from that standpoint. So I
Okay.
need it identified.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay, Mr. Kemper, go ahead.
Oh, now, sorry, I didn't press my unmute button. David's correct. We have walked around and looked at the landscaping. I think we have no issue, the association with a 35-foot buffer line, what's in there and, what exactly is already there versus what needs to be added is yet to be determined, and it's something the whole association would want to look at. But a 35-foot line seems reasonable to us.
Thank you.
Where are we, Scott?
Well, I think we had gone through all the
Have we
commission.
gone through everybody
I
now?
thought so anyone from the public, I'll ask one, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor and opposition to this application? I'm not seeing anything else. Okay, so we can go back and maybe go through the commission one more time and make sure.
Yeah, I'd make a comment myself, and I think Jay brought up an interesting observation. The reality is, if this site did not have a densely wooded area behind it, the option of may requiring could step in very comfortably. And I think that's where we differ on whether or not we need to use that may option. There is a wooded area back there already, just a matter of improving it. But if it were not there, then we could have put the may to a will. But if there were no trees back there, if it was just vacant land, it might be a different story. So that's just a comment. Other commissioner comments? Patrick, Mike?
Should we make a motion and then open it up for discussion?
Well, they've asked for it the other way a couple of times now, so we can make a motion.
Okay. I'll just go for it, Madam Chair. This is Ines St. James. I make a motion to approve the application from RPG Farmington Commons LLC for special permit for residential use at units 1, 4A, and 4B at 790 Farmington Avenue.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
Matthew Pogson, and I second that.
Thank you. Are there additional comments from the commissioners? Patrick?
No, I don't. I mean, again, I was just trying to understand the buffer. But it is quite a big buffer as it stands. And I don't see anybody going and cutting that down. Why would anybody want to, I guess? So, no, I was just pretty much, I threw that in there before for clarification, but I'm okay with that buffer.
Thank you. Mike?
No questions. I think this is a good use for these buildings, and I have no concerns about the buffer after the conversation.
Matt?
So I do have a concern about the buffer. The reasoning is that currently, now that it is in that zone, it has the ability to have 70, actually higher, 80% coverage. And if they were to come in tomorrow and ask for, the coverage, it would actually cover probably a good part of that area that is wooded right now. It's not the same as having a like conservation easement, but having the buffer established, and by just saying that there's a bee buffer would give us a solid set 35 feet that would from the property line, from the back property line. And it would also, it would be wise, in my opinion, to also include the side yards to also have a bee buffer, which in the regulations, it says that 0 feet abutting a residential zone where the commission may require a bee buffer yard, and that is for the side yard as well. So I do believe that, considering that it is up against the country club side, which is a residential, I don't know, I don't have it right in front of me, but the other side, I believe, has a small part of residential, but not completely. I believe that butts up to a portion of Farmington Center Zone. But I think it would be, I think we would be remiss to not include a bee buffer zone to just ensure that the neighbors in these residential zones are protected from the potential of this entire area being expanded upon and made much larger. Again, you're allowed to cover this property with, I think it's 80% coverage. It might even be more than that. I don't have it right in front of me, unfortunately, but it makes it so that those neighbors, obviously one of them is an owner of the property right now, but may not be in the future, obviously, could be forced to have somebody right on the border if we were not to put that buffer in there. Obviously, again, actually, Mr. Bombara made a good point about when this gets brought up. It would be brought up again if they came in for a site change. So if they came in with new site plans and they were changing this and they were building a big complex and it was going to cover all that area, we could require it at that time when things change. But I just think that it would be a very smart and wise decision, and it would show a lot of forethought if we were to do the bee buffer yard now to ensure the safety of those neighbors. So I think that we should condition this approval with a bee buffer yard at the rear yard at the very least, if not including the side yards as well. So I leave that open for everybody else to discuss.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Thank you. So this is the rear yard. So I understand what you just said with respect to that, Matt. Technically, this is the side yard, which already has parking, and it's parking that's required in order to satisfy their parking requirements. So what portion of the side yard would you feel needs to have that buffer yard? And then there's a creek over here, so there's a water course that would fall under wetlands and whatnot. So I don't know if you would mind clarifying that, so as the discussion continues, it's clear for folks.
I'm looking at it. It's hard to see it on your screen. I'm trying to see it on mine right now. I'm bringing it up again. So it would be, so maybe this needs to just be clarified, and maybe I'm not correct in thinking, how far back would the rear portion of the yard be considered? What, on that far left corner, starting at the far left marker, how far forward would the rear yard be considered?
So 35, this is the 50-foot line. If I were to extend it, 50 feet is roughly here, so 35 feet would be approximately to this location.
Okay.
And come straight across the rear.
Curse
from
now.
From here, all over.
I apologize. Talk over you. It's kind of tricky.
No, that's all I had to say.
Where your cursor is, go to that back corner marker on the property line, if you could.
This one right here?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, sure, that one right there is fine. I was looking at the other corner where we had started. if you were to go forward towards Route 4, that area is the side yard, correct? Would that not be considered side yard?
So for a setback, it's gonna come straight across from side yard to side yard line. So so if the commission leaves this as 0, right, so the
Yes.
side yard is 0 unless the commission requires a B buffer yard.
Correct.
35 feet would start, right, because it's 0 over here, it doesn't have anything to connect into other than the property line. So it would come down off the rear property line 35 feet and then come straight across the back to the 35-foot point on, intersecting point on this property line.
And that would be
So
the
it would-
rear.
And that would be considered the rear because there is no side. If there's a side, then it stops and it wraps around, right? It does this when it connects, but if it's 0 over here, then it comes straight across.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I suppose to the left, if we're looking at our screen, to the left of building number 2, where there's a 12-inch maple and another 12-inch maple, that is not considered part of the side yard?
That would be part of the side yard, yes. So if you wanted, I guess my point is, you said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but basically you're saying a side and rear yard, buffer yard. Well, the side yard would come all the way down the entire side, so we need,
I
right?
think I'm
Or-
understanding what you're saying. If we were to make,
I need some parameters, because clearly this isn't a buffer yard down here, even though it's.
I understand. I'm sorry, I was not clear. I was considering just the area that was currently not being used for parking. And when you specifically pointed out the parking, I was confused and thought that was the only part we were going to be considering a side yard. But that small little area right there is what I was considering the side yard and exactly where your cursor is. So I was just thinking that area, instead of, let's just say that tomorrow they decide they want to expand this property and they want to put a brand new building right where those 2 maple trees are, technically they could put them directly on the property line right there. So I was just thinking that if we had a setback right there, it might help to make it so that we didn't have a building right on the property line, right on that, because it literally is a 0-foot setback. So I don't really think that's appropriate up against that piece of property. Nor the other side for that matter. But again, that one is more a debatable option. I mean, it's a small piece. It's really not that big of a section, but the rear one is definitely something that I feel strongly about. The side ones, I guess, would be more debatable since it's such a small piece of the land. But that is the area that I was referring to for the clarification, Shannon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to Inez.
I am in full support of this project. I think it's a great idea for our town. I too, I don't want my town to look like, one building next to each other without any differentiation. So I am definitely in support of a buffer of some sort. The rear, obviously, it's pretty clear, the 35 feet, no issues. The sides are a little bit more problematic. So I don't know if I would feel comfortable that the applicant work with the staff. I know you're looking for a number, but I would have to see it. I can't visualize it, so I'm kind of all over the place, but I like the project, and I believe wholeheartedly that we need some kind of separation for the future, because you don't know. Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm also in support of the project. I do think it's great for the town as well. Like Matt and Inez said, I think the gentleman involved and the individuals involved with the property and the neighboring property have a good understanding and best of intentions. I think to formalize that buffer long term, though, would be important should any of this property change hands. So I do think we need to consider some kind of buffer in the rear in particular. But overall, I think the project is real positive for us.
John?
So I would agree with Scott and with Matt. I think that the back area, we should set a buffer zone of 35 feet to prevent intrusion into that area. I'm not clear on the side zones, but that could be handled in other applications. But right now, I think it would be important for us to approve this with a 35-foot rear buffer on this property.
Okay, we're gonna need to modify them,
So
okay,
you either cancel the motion or you modify the motion.
right.
So someone, if you're gonna modify the motion, someone has to make the motion to modify it to include what you wish to include. That modification would also need a second that would be voted upon. And then you go back to the original motion, which would have been modified by then. So
does it make sense for me to modify it since I made the motion?
So you can retract yours and just modify yours if
Okay.
you'd like to, and then we
Yeah.
don't have to vote twice.
What you said.
But before we do that, can I ask another
Wait a
question? I'm trying to, Patrick here.
Sure, no,
Go
absolutely.
ahead, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
I'm just confused now. I'm trying to understand this. So what is it that you're at? So you're looking for a 35-foot buffer. So basically what you're saying is leave what's there, leave 35 feet of what's there and it has nothing to do with the B buffer? Can you?
No, so the speed buffer has, as it's defined in the regulations, has varying widths. 35 feet is one of those widths. It's 25, 30, 35, 45, and 60 when you look at how it's defined in the zoning regulations. I recommended the 35 feet because that has the one-to-one planting unit that's required, and it's fairly straightforward and seemed reasonably appropriate here to provide buffering for future homeowners and not be so onerous that it could not be accommodated readily. So that's where that is. So the 35 feet is the buffer yard width that's being discussed, and as I had noted, it would run from property line to property line across at that 35-foot offset from the rear property line. It would run between the two sides, the full width. Does that help?
Okay, right. Yeah, that does. And basically what that means though is that 35 feet would be there. It doesn't mean you're putting more buffer.
No, so again, as part of the planting regulations, the commission can say that the existing vegetation is satisfying that B buffer yard. And so it basically sounds like that's where we are now.
they would have to specify that.
You can, but at least it gives the planning office a benchmark. Right, and so, and we can go out, we'll be out at various times, take some photographs so we understand what's there. And then if there's cutting in the future, we can say, okay, clearly this is not providing any buffer screening, and it gives everyone a benchmark. So that's all I'm looking for at this particular point in time. I'm not suggesting that immediately additional plantings need to be done. I just need the commission to say, you know, do we want, it's just a 10-foot setback, or yes, we think it needs some screening and the existing plantings can satisfy that screening.
Okay, yeah, now that clears it up. Now I understand that. Yeah, and that makes sense to me.
Okay, let's go back to the original motion. If we're going to do a new motion, then the first motion has to be rescinded, and the seconder has to accept that rescinding, please.
Madam Chair, it's Ines St. James. I retract a prior motion to approve RPG Farmington Commons LLC application for special permit for residential use at units 1, 4A, and 4B at 790 Farmington Avenue.
Does the seconder rescind?
It
I believe that was me. I rescind that, yes.
Okay, Okay, the
Okay.
motion has been rescinded. We need a new motion, please. Please clarify it.
Maybe it shouldn't be me, okay. Okay, it's Ines St. James. I make a motion to approve the application from RPG Farmington Commons LLC for special permit for residential use at units 1, 4A, and 4B at 790 Farmington Avenue, with the condition that the rear buffer yard
Yeah?
of 35 feet is required. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the
35
rear,
foot buffer.
yeah, rear buffer yard, 35 feet. With existing plantings satisfying the current
With
buffer.
existing plantings, yep.
No,
What do you,
that's
okay, good, thank you.
Have a second to that, please?
Matt Pogson, I second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion before the vote? You want to understand what we're voting on?
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay,
Moving on.
Thank you very
to the
much.
next-
thank you.
Thank you. The next public hearing, JDA Farmington LLC, application for special permit and site plan approval to relocate an existing building and construct new bank branch at 784 Farmington Avenue in the FCFV zone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Reeve. Can you all hear me?
Yep. We
Great.
can.
I hear someone else in the background, but hopefully that'll go away. My office is at 79 Main Street in the Unionville section of Farmington, and I represent the applicant and the owner, which is JDA Farmington LLC. We're staying right in the same neighborhood. Actually, this is an adjoining property to the one you were just discussing. The principal in JDA, the owner, is Robert Weiner, who is on the call and available for questions. I'll make some fairly brief introductory background remarks, and then I'll ask Tom Daly of Mylone and McBroom as the project engineer to discuss the site plan with you. And Tom will be followed by Hernan Graciano from TPG Architecture for a discussion of the proposed new Chase branch bank building. There are also representatives of Chase and Stonefield Engineering on the call who can raise their hands and answer any questions that may come up from the commission or the public. Preliminarily, the certified letters were sent out. I gave those receipts to Sandy last week, and I also posted a sign on the premises. So all the notice requirements for the neighbors have been met. So Chase Bank is the proposed tenant for the site, and the proposal is to construct a new bank branch building facing Farmington Avenue, and then to preserve, rehabilitate, and relocate the historically significant portions of the existing building. And that existing building was apparently once a service garage for travelers who were visiting the Elm Tree Inn back in the early days of automotive travel in Farmington. And you have a couple of letters in your file from Mr. Bombara and Mrs. Corbett that go into some significant detail on the history of that part of that building, and then why they believe it's worth preserving. And that goes to why the owner and Chase have agreed to preserve rather than demolish that building. This is not the first time that JDA, that Mr. Weiner has been before you on this site. Several years ago, it became apparent that the state of Connecticut was going to take a significant part of the site and create this new backage road, which pretty much bisects what the site was when Mr. Weiner purchased it. So at that time, he came before you for a site plan application, and I'm sorry, for a subdivision application, which you approved, and it divided the site into two lots, one on each side of the road. After that, you approved, for the lot on the west side, you approved a residential condominium projects where the Chuck Steakhouse used to stand. Mr. Weiner sold off that portion of the land several years ago to another developer who was in the process of completing those condos. So Mr. Weiner has no further involvement with that property, which I believe is now known as 788 Farmington Avenue. He then identified Chase as a potential tenant for the area to the east of the Backage Road. That was back in 2018. And since that time, Chase and Mr. Weiner have been working towards this application that's in front of you tonight. Now, in Shannon's agenda review and also in a letter from Mr. Eagles, who's the chairman of the Architectural Design Review Committee, you'll get a flavor, I think, for the amount of time, effort, and expense that the staff and the ADRC and Chase and the owner have devoted to arriving at this proposal, which we believe has the support of the staff. We believe the concept has the support of the ADRC and the community. There are several letters in your file from neighbors, including some of the tenants in the buildings behind you that you were just discussing. And there's also a letter in the file from the chairman of the Economic Development Commission, which has endorsed the project. So to go back a couple of years, in 2018, Bill Warner was the planner. and he had a vision for the site, which was a rather large, 2 full-story building, white with black trim that would have mimicked the Elm Tree Inn. And that proposal was put together by Chase and went before the ADRC informally in March of last year. And that concept for the site was unanimously disfavored by that committee. The minutes of their meeting of March 2019 show that they felt that the mass and the height would overwhelm the site. They directed Chase's architects to come back with a smaller building. They pointed out some other buildings in the area, such as Miss Porter's and the Farmington Bank building. They asked for something, a combination of red brick and clapboard. So following that, it was back to the drawing board, and there was work done. Bill left, so there was work done with Mark DeVoe and Shannon and the ADRC over the past 18 months to come up with what you're going to see tonight. And that involved at least 3 informal meetings with the ADRC last year. And then more recently, a meeting earlier this month on October 15th on a referral from you, which generated the letter from the ADRC from Mr. Eagles, which you have in your file, that contains a positive recommendation for the project and a request that should you approve the project, that Chase go back to the ADRC yet again to continue some discussions on some fine details of the proposal. The plans that you see before you tonight have been further modified since the ADRC letter came out, and we think they now meet with the vast majority of the changes that the ADRC was still requesting with regard to the proposal, and the architect will cover those during his presentation. This property, as you've heard, it's in the Farmington Center, Farmington Village Zone, and that requires new buildings have at least 2 full stories. Now, as I said earlier, the ADRC didn't want 2 full stories, so this proposal, and then Shannon will scroll through to the rendering probably when the architect speaks, but it's got a center area with the full 2-story, and then I call them the wings are 1 story. And that can be allowed in the zone with 2 conditions. The first condition is that you have to have a positive referral from the ADRC endorsing it, which we have, and that's not surprising because they're the folks who told us to design it that way. The second requirement is that there be a 5-6 vote from this commission approving a waiver, which we've applied for, so that we don't have to have 2 full stories. I know as Mr. Hoab said in the first presentation, the zone hasn't been around all that long. It's been 5 years now. We talked about the history of how it was adopted. And the ADRC was an important part of that process. And I just want to sort of remind everyone what their function is. Your regulations, section 29A, the Farmington Village Zone, state that the ADRC shall provide design support to your commission consistent with the design and landscape standards and guidelines found in the regulations. The principles expressed in the village district plan, the architectural heritage of the area, and the distinctive characteristics of each district. So they don't have regulatory authority per se. That remains with you, but you've appointed them to advise you on matters of architectural concern within this particular district. And your regulations also talk about who should be on the ADRC. And by my count, currently we've got 5 different architects on that commission right now. And over the course of the last 18 months, they haven't always been in complete agreement about the design details, about the fine details, but I think they have all been consistent that they want to see a building that's less than 2 full stories on this site. So we're going to ask that you follow their design advice of those professionals that you've appointed to give you recommendations in this area. And I just want to make clear, if we don't get 5 out of 6 votes for this design, it can't pass. 4-2 is not enough, because we need this waiver for less than 2 full stories. So if it doesn't get 5 out of 6, we probably will see us again with a design similar to what Bill Warner thought was appropriate, but which the 5 architects on the ADRC unanimously rejected. So as you can tell, Mr. Weiner and Chase and the staff in the ADRC have all spent a significant amount of time, effort, expense to arrive at this point. And I've been told that Chase has really put a lot more into this than what is typical for them. And I think that's a testament to the fact that they really want to be in Farmington, and they really want to be in this village location. Having said that, I mentioned earlier, the ADRC is requesting that we go back to them after you act for some further discussions. And respectfully, I would say Chase believes that conversation over the last 18 months and 4 meetings has really run its course, and it probably wouldn't be productive to return there if you're satisfied with the design that's before you tonight. It incorporates the vast majority of the outstanding concerns that the ADRC raised in their recent letter that I think Mr. Eagles will probably go over. And this process has involved 3 town planners, input from the 5 architects. It's gone on for 18 months. And Chase has revised the plans numerous times already, I think at least a half a dozen. I think they've fully engaged in that process in good faith, and believe that now hopefully would be the time to bring this to a conclusion, and that if you folks like the design of the building as presented, that you would act on it tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Daly to talk about the site plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. For the record, Tom Daly with Mylone and McBroom. Before you is our site plan, which we've rendered for this presentation purposes. As Bob and on this plan, we have north pointing to the right. So on our left-hand side of the property, what I'm going to do is I'll walk you through the site plan from left to right. So on the left-hand side, we have Farmington Ave. And then we move into the front, basically the front yard of the site. And it's really dominated by 2 things. One, we're going to have a very nice and grand plaza at the front door. We anticipate that we'll have some benches in it and some planters. One comment you should know about is the ADRC has requested that plaza be slightly enlarged. If you can see, there's a slight jog in the building, and you'll see later architecturally that has a brick facade on it. So ADRC thought it would make a logical sense to kind of line that up, and we have no objection to that change. In addition to that, the front area will be lawn, a specimen tree located in the front, and then some planters along the front of the building. As we wrap around the building on the western side, we're bringing our sidewalk all the way around the building. So you really, except for to the south, we have sidewalk really on all three faces. And one important thing here is if you can see part of the DOT's design, they installed a center island in Back Edge Road. That was very critical in terms of how we laid out this project. What we had to do was do a vehicle turning movement. So as you come out of the exit lane, you have enough radius to turn and get into there and not conflict with that center island. So that was really critical about where we set this driveway and really set the building. But as you come into, it'll be a two-way entrance into the main parking lot. We have 14 parking spaces located in the main parking field based upon what's required for a bank and then the relocated building in the back, which is anticipated to be office. Our calculations show that we need 12 parking spaces and we're showing 14 on site. As we move to the rear of the property, as Bob indicated, there's the location of the relocated building. It's about 1,000 square foot footprint, pretty small, but it's nicely located up into that corner. And we've really created almost a garden feel to the frontage towards Back Edge. As you know, on this site, we're really working with almost 3 frontages or 3 fronts. So the terms of both the building facades and the landscaping, it was incredibly important to make sure we're really creating no really back or rear yard on that. So we've developed a strong palette of materials on that corner, and we feel that would be very complementary to the historic relocated building. And as we move to the east there, we'll have this is going to have a remote or a detached ATM, bank teller area. It'll be one-way exit out of the back of the property. One will be a bypass lane and the other one will be for if you want to go to the ATM. One comment that we have worked with engineering is we brought the sidewalk all the way around, but we had not taken it all the way to I guess that would be the far northeast corner. But working with Bruce and Shannon, one of the comments they had was to extend that sidewalk. So really we are now bringing sidewalk around the entire perimeter. In addition to that, we still also have this back corner, which we once again did what we thought was a robust and a complementary landscaping plan. And a lot of these materials you're going to see are similar to what were used on the property across the street and also the Farmington streetscape. So we tried to be very complementary to that. Also part of this, as we worked through our application process, myself and the engineering department had a very thorough review where we went comment by comment through the engineering comments, and I would say that we have no objection to the comments, and I believe you have received something from Bruce to say that we're under the same understanding that those engineering comments will all be resolved with a final set of site plans, and really essentially the plan that you see here tonight would be no changes that I would say of anything of merit. So we feel that we resolved verbally all the engineering comments, and we will have no objection to wrapping those up into a final set of plans if this commission so approves the project. With that, I would turn it over back to the architect. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rene Graziano. I'm with TPG Architecture. Just to clarify with Tom, if you can go back to the site plan. The island on the right-hand side that he mentioned is a drive-up ATM. It's not a teller line. It's just a car can go there and pick up the money. It's not a teller. We can go to the plans now. As Robert Reeve mentioned, we probably met about 6 times with the architectural design committee, and through probably like the last 18 months or so. Not also we met with them, but we also worked with them really good with emails, going back and forth before meeting with them so that at least the meetings were a little bit more in design and fully executed as to like how the comments were interpreted. The last time that we met on October 15, there's about 8 items that were thought to adjust. Some reviewers had opinions on how to make this facade a little bit better. So one of the comments was to adjust the rear entrance that you can see on the bottom left-hand side. It's a mirror image of the front. The top has a detailed frieze, and they suggested about 30 to 36 inches, and that's what we provided. It lines up with the front. And then also they suggested if we can add a trim piece between and the cornice on the white area of the building that is made out of clapboard. So the clapboard is a light gray material, and then the trim around it will be white. So they felt that the top of the parapet and the top of the window is too much of a gap of clapboard. They wanted to be interrupted with a little bit. We looked at several designs and we felt that this is like the way to, not too much, not too little, but it does interrupt it enough to separate the elevation a little bit. If you want to flip through the next page, this gives the height of the building, and as you're aware, it's not a fully two-story building, but we did try to give the illusion of a two-story building. So therefore, the corner piece that Farmington Ave is almost double height. I'll tell you the height. I can't really see the number off the top of my head. I'll tell you in a second what it is. 23 feet or 20. I think I need glasses.
27?
27. So it does give you the illusion of a two-story building. So that at least the corner is featured as you're driving through the street. Even though it is 27 feet, we created tall windows with transoms above that. The transoms above will be having a film on them. And per the last meeting we had with the Architectural Design Committee, they prefer if it would be a charcoal color instead of a gray color. So we provided charcoal. One of the other comments that they had, they wanted the side lights on the tall windows and the short windows to be consistent. I believe we had 21 side lights originally, now we're down to 12. These are standard windows from Pella window. The tall windows are about 7 feet, and then the shorter windows are about 5'2". One of the other comments on this entrance, the round columns, majority of the committee prefer to be square. So that's something that we adjusted on this elevation and floor plan as well. If you go to the next page, which I believe shows the renderings. This one is the enlarged details, where it shows that there are 12-inch square columns at the entrance. Above the windows, we have a large stone that the top is 6-inch overhang, but the bottom sill is 4 inches. One of the comments was to make it 8 inches on the top and 4 inches at the bottom. We looked at both scenarios and we felt that having an 8-inch overhang was too much. It just looked too massive, especially on the transom windows. We favored to have only 6-inch overhang on the top header. the next page, I guess. This would be where the drive-up ATM is. It kind of mimics the same design as the entire building. Brick piers with light gray canopy. Next page. This is a rendering through Farmington Ave. It shows what it would be walking up to it. Again, it's not a two-story building, but the illusion that is 27 feet, it does give you the sense of like a big landmark at the corner, especially with the detailed bricks around it that we made reference to the town. We have the reservoir building that we gave. We were provided a firehouse. So we really tried our best to bring some of the old history back to this location and also like not to stick out, but to blend in a little bit. Then as Tom mentioned, the pavers in the front, one of the comments was to go edge to edge of the brick building. So we adjusted that. It does give a larger plaza with some seating and planters. And then the next rendering. The next rendering shows that the rear entrance was flattened a bit. It used to have a gable, and now it became a flat roof. It also shows the trim board that separates the parapet and the windows. I think it's a nice separation, and you can see it from a distance. And I think we have one more rendering. A note to make is the trim board. We decided that it didn't make sense to carry at this particular point because it interfered with the signage. So in order not to make it seem like it wasn't thought out, we felt that if we omit it from the corner area, at least it's the design intent is for that particular back of house area not to have the trim. And I think that's the end of the renderings.
Correct. Yep, that's the last page.
Do you have anything else, Hernan?
No.
Well, thank you. That's our formal presentation. We'd be happy to entertain your questions.
We'll start with Patrick.
I mean, no, I don't have any questions at this point. AD, ERC is on board and EDC as well.
It's breaking up.
Yeah, you're in and out, Patrick. You want to try one more time?
I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
I think it's a beautiful building. You guys definitely put a lot of work into this. I guess I'm more curious. Everything on that side of the road basically is a two-story building, and I'm kind of curious why there was such against a two-story building there, full two-story building. Do you have any insight to that?
Mr. Eagles is on the call, so I think he'll be speaking later. He's probably the best person to comment on that.
Okay. Yeah, it just, it looks good, but even in your renderings, everything around it is a two-story building. But what is the intention to do with the relocated building?
Mr. Weiner intends to use that as his office, his personal office.
Okay. Other than that, I am good for right now. Thank you.
Matt?
I was just curious if there was a northern view of the rendering. The two views are very helpful from Route 4 and from Backage Road, but I was curious if there was one available looking in from the north side, looking towards Main Street, to give us an idea of what that ATM area looks like. And I really haven't seen a good view from there, and I don't know if that's something you can even do on the fly, really, circumstances. but I wanted to ask that question. So I don't know if who that goes to, but.
Hernan Graziano can answer it. We don't have a rendering, but we do have color elevations. I believe that was page 4.
Okay. They're just not incongruent with the rest of the buildings, and I just kind of wanted to be able to see what it was, the distances between the building. I can tell by looking at the site plan, the exact distance and whatnot. I was trying to see what size it looked like, and also a little bit about the 2 lanes that are heading out that way. If somebody was to pull in there with a larger vehicle, are they going to be able to make it through in that area? Because it looks relatively narrow on the plans with that, and with the covering as well. It's I believe it was 8 feet tall. Is that correct?
The
You there?
canopy of the ATM?
Yeah, I believe is that an 8-foot clearance?
Hang on, and I'll zoom in for it. 10
Oh, it's
feet.
10 feet.
10 foot,
10 feet.
yeah, 8 to the soffit, 15 and a quarter to the parapet.
Okay. I'm just more concerned about when they're cleaning it over the winter, if they've got a salter in the back of the truck or something, they're driving through there. It's going to be a pretty tall vehicle. I actually had thought it was shorter, but I think I saw the 8 and thought it was 8 feet, not the 10-foot 8. I think the 10-foot is probably adequate. My other questions, I know that the engineering report points out that we don't have a photometric plan, and it's something that you're willing to provide. However, under the circumstances, I mean, this is right on the main road, and I'm very curious about what type of light would be put off by what you're proposing. There doesn't seem to be light coming from that ATM, according to what I've seen so far. There were no lights under it. There's no, it doesn't really point out anything about lighting on that ATM. And technically there's actually nothing about lighting in the parking lot. There's a couple circles, but they're not well labeled. Maybe this is actually a little different than the one that I have in my packet. So there seem to be a few changes between what we received and what we're viewing tonight. I think some of the changes were made after the ADRC had looked at it. For instance, the entrance from the rear of the building is different with that flat roof versus the peaked roof. So I don't know if we could point out for me where the lanterns are proposed to be put for parking, for the illumination in the parking lot. And I do believe that somewhere in the engineering report, it referenced that they were going to match the existing ones on the road. However, in the plans we received, it showed different ones, more of a lantern style, not the overhanging style that's predominant around the edge there. So could you illuminate me on the photometrics?
Tom, is that for you, Tom?
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you for the comments. You are correct. So we do show the photometric plan was submitted after the comments came in. So we gave that to the town and it included a photometric plan. The lights that we're proposing were actually similar to the ones that were used for the Berkshire Bank, understanding that that was potentially a similar use. When we talked to the engineering staff in the town has requested that those lights be switched out with ones that mimic the ones that were put in for the back edge road, as we saw in that rendering. So they're going to be changed out to the, I guess, the gooseneck type light fixture. So that is a change, but we did provide that. But Shannon, if you scroll to the right on this plan, so we have, yes. So we have the symbol you see, yeah, there, nicely done, Shannon. We have a similar, yeah, there's another light. So there's 2 light fixtures that are there. And then, let's see if and then we actually have a light fixture right there that would illuminate as you come through the ATM. And then also we are relocating some existing lights that were put in with Backage Road. We'll be sliding those back a little bit to accommodate the new sidewalk system. So But Shannon, if you scroll to the elevations that Hernan put together, that would show the light fixture that the town has requested we change out to. Yeah, there's that goose and that standard style. As I said, we took a shot at it and we tried to match the Berkshire Bank at the top of the hill, knowing that that was a relatively recent project. But working with the town and this being more centralized really in the heart of the village, we've agreed to go to that light fixture.
Okay. I have seen that you have goosenecks on the signs. I'm going to address that in just a minute, but are there lights for that ATM? Because currently it doesn't show any lights for that ATM. So is it lit underneath? Is there any sort of lighting other than just the screen on the ATM?
Underneath the canopy, there will be lights. It's just an ATM code requirement that we need lights underneath there.
Okay.
Matt, anything else?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I hit the, yeah. Yes, I have a couple other things. The pictures that you have submitted show the Chase logo on the side of the building. Obviously, it kind of gives a perspective of what you're looking for, but are you coming in again for a separate sign application, or are you expecting that this is part of the application?
I believe that's part of the application.
Okay, so we're approving the signs as they are as part of this application tonight. On the back side of the building, the Chase almost looks as if it is part of the brick. Is that actually put into the brick, or is that a sign that is over the brick? Beck? I'm moving my cursor around right now, thinking you can see what I'm pointing at, and it makes no sense. But
I don't know if you heard me. It would be a sign over the brick.
Okay, very good. It was a little difficult to tell from the pictures. So we have the one in the front, the one in the back. Are there other signs that you're hoping for the Chase sign to be put in that island that currently has like Gustafsson or whatever that, I'm sorry, I mispronounced it, but there's a sign that's right there in the center of the island. Is that going to be something that's altered, or do you right in this area, right in the front? Yep. There is currently a sign there, I believe.
I think it might be the second, it's this one, it's the second one back.
Okay, so it's just
sign there.
Okay, and it probably looks like it's much closer to the road these days because there's nothing right there.
And it doesn't show, yeah, I can't get you a good view of it, Matt, sorry.
Okay, is there any proposed signage there, or would that be coming in at a separate time if there was something to be done?
These are the signs that were approved internally. Not to say you guys, but internally.
I understand. All right. I was looking at the site plans as well and saw that there are several easements that are over this property. I believe it was 6D and 7A were Connecticut Commons Group. Are those easements anything that are going to be disrupted by all of this?
Tom, do you want to speak to that?
As part of this application, we will have to make any modifications to existing easements.
Okay, are those easements things that are going to be able to be agreed upon? It'll be contingent upon if you're able to change those easements? Is that how that works?
No, and I don't think they're not utilities or anything to that effect. It's I'd have to see what the actual easements are.
I believe they were for parking.
Yeah, well, part of that is the developer has gotten two of the property. Part of this project is two of the adjacent properties have basically yielded their rights to park on this property. So some of those have already been cleaned up. That they currently they have rights to park on this property, and those are I believe Udolph and another property owner no longer will have those after this project is approved.
Okay. That actually, I had a follow-up question that answered it. So thank you. I was wondering if it was still shared parking or not, because I understood that it was. Let me see if there's anything else. Photometrics, that the north side rendering. Last but not least is rainwater runoff. You have 70% coverage. You're allowed more coverage with the center zone, but I've looked at your the plans, and it looks as if everything's being handled by the town off-site. So is there no rain water runoff being handled on-site on this property?
Well, two things. One, we actually have a net decrease in impervious coverage, but one of the engineering comments is that they are looking for us to handle that. So similar to what the other bank, the Collinsville Savings Bank, we did, we'll be converting these pipes to perforated pipes and then putting a weir structure in the manhole to promote infiltration onto the site to further reduce the flow before it comes off site. That was an engineering comment.
Yeah, I'm a little, I don't know how to put it, but there are a lot of engineering comments. Usually I would expect to see a shorter list. But it seems as if as long as they're willing to go along with that, then it's really not a problem, because most of them actually were addressing issues that I wrote down well before I ever even started looking at the engineering comments. So I'm a little relieved to see that. But I think that answers my questions. I would like to just finish by saying that I actually think this looks fantastic. I think it's a really great thing for this area. I think it looks a lot better than the parking lot that's there now, and I'm really looking forward to the project. I may have a lot of questions about it, but it is something that I think will be really nice there. So thank you very much for your time.
Inez?
Okay, so another bank. We are talking about the tightest corner in our town. My questions are really more about the time frame, the construction. How will this impact the traffic on Farmington Avenue and the businesses in this area?
The Chase hopes to get in the ground before the winter breaks. They've been working at this for 2 years now, so they hopefully will get a decision promptly and get in the ground. In terms of the traffic, it's not a high generator. We did not get a request from the staff for a traffic report. Tom, do you have any sense of average daily vehicles on this road, and to what extent we might be adding to that?
I don't have that, but I would agree too that banks as a whole have a very low traffic generation. Even as I have driven by the Berkshire Bank many times, I'm not sure I've seen too many cars coming out. But there was one question about construction and what's the disruption that's going to have here. So we have some positive things about this site is we don't have a big cut and fill, which not a lot of earthwork. The site is generally flat today. And so in terms of, big construction equipment, we don't anticipate the need for that. And then the overall building is not much bigger than a house. So I think logistically, one of the first things that has to happen is we have to relocate that building to the back. But ultimately, I don't think this is going to be a heavy lift with a lot of trades out there and a lot of construction activity. It's just not that big of a building. But we need to be conscientious of where we are in the village, and some of those time frames of starting construction first thing in the morning is going to be a challenge. So the construction manager will have to be well informed about the Route 4 traffic patterns. The nice thing about Back Edge Road is you're able to come in through the front and the back. This probably would have been a little more challenging of a construction site before Back Edge was built, but now they can kind of scoop in through the back. So I think your comments are well heard, and the project manager or the construction manager will have to really understand the traffic patterns on Route 4 as they tackle this project.
I appreciate it. That's exactly where I was heading with it. You know, being a resident, excuse me, of our town for over 20 years. We feel it. We have scars, right, with that corner anyway, and then businesses and whatnot. But that's awesome. Thank you, Tom. And I'm all set.
Scott?
I'll echo the comments about the beauty of the building. I think it's going to be a nice addition there. I'm curious that the original building is only part of that being relocated. Is part, I thought I heard that towards the beginning.
Correct, just partial.
Okay, okay.
The historically significant portions are being preserved. And you'll probably hear more about that from Mr. Bombera and Mrs. Corbett when they speak.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
John?
John Vibert? You're on mute.
What's that?
Any comments or questions, John?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming that the portion that's going to be moved over is the historically significant garage that was there for the Elm Street Inn.
Correct.
Okay. And so that's fine. My only comment is that when I look at the building, it looks like the red brick portion of the building is the original building, and the white portions in the rear and on the right-hand side appear to be add-ons. So my question is, why would you build a new building that looks like it's been added on to?
I
How many
believe certainly the architect could walk you through, but I think it might be helpful for us to hear from Tim Eagles, because that's exactly what they wanted it to look like, basically. So I think because that's somehow some of the evolution of the building that we already have in the village. But I think Tim can probably best help with that, and he will speak as part of our public comment.
So I'm willing to hold back and wait for him. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Barbara Brenneman, I have just a couple of questions. Any rooftop utilities on those flat roofs?
We are gonna put rooftop units. You can see them on the lower elevation. They're gonna be hidden within the parapet. We show the dashed line that represents the unit and the curb cut. We have about 4 feet.
I'm not going to be able to see them when I come down Route 4.
Sorry, you broke up on my end.
I said, does that mean I'm not going to be able to see them from either direction on Route 4?
You will not be able to see them.
Okay. And then my other question is, the building, the brick building appears to look like a two-story. What is the interior ceiling height? Did you go all the way up on the interior?
Our main ceiling, which we consider the public area, is 1010, while the back of house would be typical like 8 or 9 feet ceilings to take advantage to hide the units on the roof.
So does that mean the parapet windows won't give light into a 10-foot ceiling?
Correct. Those transoms will have
What are
a
the
film.
transom light? I'm sorry?
The transoms will have a film, a charcoal film.
No, so the ceiling, where's the ceiling according to the transoms? Is it at the bottom of the transoms or at the top of the transoms?
It'll be above the header. You see the header, it's 9'9", give or take. It'll be a little bit above that.
Wow. That's interesting. Does this building require sprinkling?
Let me look at my notes.
Does it
No,
have to
it's
be
less,
under the new?
it's less than, we're at 3,000 and change on the square footage.
Right. It's under 4,000.
Yeah, I don't.
It's under 4?
Yeah, so unless the building code is gonna require it, our zoning regulations do not.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. This is a public hearing, so if there are folks that would like to step forward, raise your hand.
Okay, if I can, all right, hang. All right, I wanna. All right, hang on, folks, because I've got.
Got a lot up there.
It's not, I can't compare it to NASA, but there's a lot of stuff up on my screen, so hang tight for a sec, because I want to. All right, so this is ADRC. I'd like to, if you'll indulge me for public comment, I'd like the ADRC chairman to proceed, and then the EDC chairman, and then we'll go to general public.
That's fine.
Is that, okay? So, I do recognize other folks have their hands raised, and we will get to everybody.
Yeah, Bill from EDC, I think that's Bill.
Bill, yeah. So what I'm gonna do is give the floor first to Tim Eagles, and Tim, if, the letter is up on the screen and your microphone is unmuted, and then, Bill Wadsworth, you'll be next, and then we will go to general public comment. So, Tim, you're all set.
Good to go. Tim Eagles, Chair of the Architectural Design Review Committee for the Town of Farmington. I want to start by offering a great thank you to Hernan and Tom and their patience with us to, as a group, we think put together a building that everybody would be proud of and a very important corner coming into town. As Bob pointed out early on, Bill had given them some direction before they came to us the first time, which was essentially a large white clapboard building, full 2 stories across the front. And scale-wise, because it's a square, and the way they had worked out the roofs, pretty much everybody on our committee looked at the building and said that is not something we'd be proud of as building on that corner. We thought that a combination of a 2-story brick piece with a 1.5-ish story clapboard piece that kind of surrounded it, that looked like potentially, the brick piece could have been the original building on the site, and historically was always there. Hence the need to get our thought to get the need of the window mullions and everything correct in the building, and kind of the details of the brick and the lintels and all that, very important to make it, what's somewhat historically accurate. So the thought ultimately, through working through multiple versions with these guys, the committee thought that a combination of that building on the corner as a very strong statement, and then a simpler clapboard piece that wrapped around it as an addition, a later addition to the building, would be a handsome way to anchor that corner. I can read, Shannon, did you want me to read the actual letter?
Ideally, I think for this, it's probably appropriate, given the nature
Okay.
of the application. Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the dear Chairman Brenneman and Commission members. At a regular meeting of the Farmington Architectural Design Review Committee held on October 15th, the ADRC voted unanimous, I'll just skip that word, to We voted all together to make a positive referral to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission in support of the Chase Bank application, JDA Farmington LLC applicant located at 784 Farmington Ave, FC/FV zone. The ADRC worked with the applicant during the informal meetings in 2019 to shape the building that is currently presented. The applicant, at the direction of a former town planner, had originally proposed a full 2-story building to mimic the adjacent Elm Tree Inn. The one exception to that is it was a full clapboard building that they came in with, as opposed to the Elm Tree, which a large portion of is brick, whitewashed brick. At the request of the ADRC, the applicant has modified the building to provide a 2-story brick main building and a 1-story clapboard extension. The ADRC fully supports this design change and finds the massing and the architecture of the building appropriate for the location and use. The ADRC and applicant understand that this design change deviates from the 2 floors of finished space zoning requirement and requires a 5-6 vote of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission with a favorable referral from the ADRC. The ADRC respectfully requests that the TPZ support this design as presented. Additionally, the ADRC requests that the TPZ require the applicant to continue discussions with the ADRC to implement the following recommendations. Modify the north elevation / entrance to remove the gable roof line and provide a flat roof line that is approximately 3 feet taller than the adjacent clapboard roof line. As you guys saw this evening, they have done that. The tall windows within the brick portion of the facade shall be modified to be double hung or shall have the appearance of double hung windows. The divided lights are to be proportioned similar to the adjacent windows with a vertical orientation. Item number 2, they have not yet done. The area, number 3, was the area between the windows and the cornice on the clapboard portion of the building shall receive an architectural band. That they have done. We thought that the area of the facade above the windows proportionally was way too heavy, and that the addition, I think that they've done a nice job with the addition of the simple piece of trim there to help reduce the scale of that, the top portion of that wall, which obviously is required, as Hernan pointed out, to hide the mechanical units above. The paver / concrete for the front plaza shall extend to the east to match the width of the brick portion of the building. They suggested tonight, and Hernan showed in his particular version, and Tom talked about it when he was showing the site plan, that they intend to do that, which is great. Provide square columns at the south entrance for review in comparison to the round columns shown. Some of the members of the committee wanted to see what square columns would look like at the south entrance as opposed to the round columns. So we had requested they show us an elevation of that, or just switch out the columns in the renderings to show us that so we could see what that looked like, and that the columns are to have the appropriate emphasis, which is the tapering of the column. Number 6 was the jog in the clapboard on the east facade shall extend an additional 1 foot. So the idea was to, on the east facade, the thought was that the jog was not great enough. I think it measured about 1 foot in the plan, and the idea was to get it out to 18 inches or 2 feet if possible. I can't remember if we discussed that tonight, if that had happened or not. The spandrel glass on the second floor windows shall be charcoal gray in color. That was number 7. That they have agreed to. And then the window and door lintels shall overhang 8 inches, and the windowsill shall overhang the 4 inches. I think the 6 inches that Hernan was talking about is fine, and the 4 inches for the sill, which is what they have shown. I think originally the drawings that they showed us showed equal top and bottom, where the 6 and the 4 is a little more appropriate. Thank you for consideration of our position. Like I said, I think they've done a great job. And I think this is a building that we as the ADRC and we hope the town of Farmington will love on this corner in our town.
Okay. Thank you. I think we'll go to all the public comments, and then if a commission member has a follow-up question directly, Tim will tackle that after we've had the full public comment.
Bill?
So we're going to do, we'll do Bill Wadsworth next. And I believe I probably have to, his hand is raised and allowed to talk. So I think, Bill, if you unmute your phone, then you should be all set.
Good evening. My name is Bill Wadsworth, 73 Red Oak Hill Road in Farmington, and I'm here on behalf of the town of Farmington as the chairperson of the Economic Development Commission. You have in your possession our October 15th correspondence regarding this development. I just want to go through that with a couple of highlights. On October 14th, 2020, the EDC commissioners voted to support this application pending before the Town Plan and Zone Commission. And also as part of our charge, we had the applicant fill out an economic impact statement that was supplied to Mr. Robert Weiner that stated the project investment of $2.785 million and is anticipated the creation of 6 full-time jobs and 2 part-time jobs. And during our conversations with Mr. Weiner, he indicated that the relocated building was not included in those counts. So we'll have an additional full-time and part-time positions in that facility. And I just want to point out that in 2019, there are currently 1,392 companies in the town of Farmington that employ 32,136 people. That's 2019. We don't know what's happening in 2020, but certainly it would be a challenge. And so any addition of employment or companies to the town is a plus for us. We also appreciate the fact that Mr. Weiner worked with the town for a number of months on this project through various staff rotations. And we appreciate the commitment that he made to this and that the Chase Bank made to this. So therefore, as chairperson of the Farmington Economic Development Commission and representing the consensus of the commission, which was unanimous, I recommend that to the Town Planning and Zone Commission approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Okay, we will proceed. Here, I'm gonna do. So I got. I think. Yep. All right, Mr. Bombara, you are up next, and I will.
Okay, thanks again, Shannon.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so as you can see on your screen, there's a letter. I actually wrote it and submitted it or wished to submit it for the ADRC, but it was pointed out to me that actually because of their process, the better place to present it was here, which I would have as well sent a letter separately, but since I'd already done this one, the staff said just to submit this. I think you've heard a lot of the points already from different people from different perspectives, but really there are 2 main points here. First, on the design of the new building, I certainly, we have plenty of architects that have looked at this. From my immature perspective and interest in historic design and preservation, obviously it's a new building. It's going to be a new building, and you don't design something to look like an old building, but I do think it fits appropriately within the other historic structures, just as if it were an application, if the property were in the historic district. I think that it would have a good chance of receiving the appropriate certificate. But here, it obviously doesn't need to, but by those standards, I think it would work well. The second is really the existing building, which they're saving. Note, as that's been said, there have been several additions over time that they're taking down, and they will be preserving and restoring the original structure, which from our research as well as other evidence, including photos, was the Elm Tree Inn garage. If you do your research on the Elm Tree, you'll find there are Hartford Courant articles where, we have the photo up, thank you, Shannon. But this is a postcard, probably 1911, showing obviously the Elm Tree Inn garage is described as that, and a lovely old car. Interesting, you see that it just dawned on me listening about the design of the new building. You see a flat structure addition perhaps to the side there, so there is some precedent for that as well. But this would have been utilized by the Elm Tree for guests as well as others that might have needed service. There were tours, day tours, even when automobiles were first common. Obviously for the wealthy, they would actually organize tours coming out of Hartford, and they would do a little loop, which would usually include a stop at the Elm Tree Inn. I was able to find this Hartford Courant article, I believe dated 1901, that mentions that they will arrive at the Elm Tree Inn at around 4 o'clock with their carriages, the Hartford Automobile Club run. So, you know, it's an interesting thing when you talk about history in Farmington. Obviously, we're very proud and we think of, you know, the Amistad and some of our Native American history. But, you know, the history goes on over time. And I think that this is critical and just a fantastic way to preserve a piece of early, not just Connecticut or Farmington culture, but of, quite frankly, national culture about when the automobile first came in and how it was adopted and how it was seen and used. So with that, I'll just finish by saying I have to really compliment everybody really, the town, the developer, this board and others. But the developer came to some of the people that he knew were interested and leaders in the historic preservation in town about the building, listened and, you know, heard how important we thought it was to preserve it, and really made an effort of both time and money to find a way to preserve when, you know, obviously the easier way for him would have been to just take the building down. So with that, I would say I would strongly urge you, here we need a 5-6 approval to approve this tonight unanimously. And we're going to get not only a great new building on the avenue, but we're also going to get this wonderfully preserved building in the back that tells a part of and preserves a part of Farmington history. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. That, I don't think, no, I know, I was just saying if Chris Cloud is on, or right, no, okay. So, so one other letter that was received, I'm just gonna go in sequence. So one other letter that was received was from Chris Cloud, a resident. It is entered into the record and it was sent to the commission and was shared with the applicant and is here on the screen for viewing. And I will continue to the next letter, and we'll also, Portia is here to speak as well. So you should be all set, Portia.
Okay, thank you. So again, I just would like to echo what Jay Bombara has just said, Jay being head of the Historic District Commission and me being president of the Farmington Historical Society, and history being the brand of Farmington, as we have self-proclaimed as Farmington, and bringing economic development into Farmington. There are some buildings that are within town that are more significant than this, I have to say, like 1 Waterville Road, which is on the Connecticut list, which is going to be saved also. But this right here, this building was interesting because it was a lesser known building, but as Jay said, very important to the automotive and the whole getting the country on wheels kind of thing. Remember that the Hillstead that Mr. Pope of the Hillstead actually manufactured cars and bicycles. And so this was a really important stop. I'm sure he had a part in that to get some of the cars to come through here. And I hope that the new owners, Chase and Mr. Weiner would, well, the new tenant and Mr. Weiner would think about maybe promoting some type of automobile event in conjunction with. I think that would be a fantastic thing. So I want to commend Mr. Weiner for keeping his promise and saying he was going to save this building, and he did after 2 years. And it cost more money to do that, but he still did it. And I applaud Chase for understanding that history is important to Farmington. So with that, I'm supporting this and any project basically that would support what we already have in Farmington, because our character and our buildings, our architecture and our stories are most important. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Portia.
Thank you. And Corbett's letter is entered into the record and was shared with the applicant and the commission, as well as the news articles that were provided as part of that. And there is another letter from Stephen Brin with, that again was also shared with the applicant and is here on the screen and entered in for the record. And I will just check, is there anyone else on the phone that wishes to speak in favor or in opposition of this application? And if you would like to do so, please raise your hand using the feature in Zoom to do so. Okay.
Hearing none?
Do we, okay, hang on, because I want, if anybody has a question, I don't want to close the hearing yet.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I was going to call the commission.
Okay. I didn't want you to close it on me yet. Okay, that's fine. We can go through the commissioners and see if anybody has follow-up questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick? Any additional
No.
questions?
Yeah, no, I don't have any further questions. And obviously, a lot of people put a lot of time into this, and the presentation was great, and the building looks great.
Mike?
I don't have any additional questions. My only comment would be, I know part of the request is that we have the applicant continue to meet with the ADRC in regards to some additional items. From my perspective, I think this applicant has gone above and beyond in preparing this and meeting numerous questions, comments, and concerns from the ADRC. I was just reviewing the last meeting minutes during this, and I feel as though they've certainly gone above and beyond, and I don't really see that as necessary to continue that conversation. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Matt?
Just to mimic what I had already said about the engineering report, there's a lot of things on here that normally when we receive an engineering report, it has a few things that need to be touched up or clarified or added to the plans, but we have 3 pages here of some things that are questions too. Things, for instance, like review of whether or not a dumpster or waste or recycling will be required. And obviously I can ask that question and get it clarified, but there just seem to be a few things that are big items that I would like to know, maybe from Shannon, honestly, what will be the procedure going from here if we approve this with the condition that the engineering report is followed, or that they meet all of the items on the engineering report? What happens, for instance, one of my concerns also was the queuing at the ATM, and that seems to be here on the ATM, that seems to be here on the engineering report. So my question then would be, what is the planning office looking as a satisfactory answer to that question? And what are we leaving in the hands of the zoning office rather than having that brought back to us for us to review as a commission?
Okay, so we reviewed all the comments with Tom and his staff. I want to say it was a week ago on the phone, so not this past Friday, but the prior Friday. And Tom had agreed to all the comments. As far as the queuing question, that really had been almost a confusion on Bruce's end with respect to which lane was a drive-through and which lane was a bypass. Given that there's room for a vehicle in the drive-through lane and then a room for one other vehicle, and that one parking space would get blocked if there was a second vehicle waiting. But again, there's not queues at these facilities like we have seen in the past. So, you know, we used to, back in the day, there were double or triple drive-throughs at the bank, and you had to have a queue of at least 8 vehicles long. And it's just not done that way anymore, given how this has so quickly changed to online banking. So we don't have a concern with respect to that. Any item, if we can't come to an agreement at a staff level, then obviously it comes back to the commission to discuss under old business and let the commission resolve. But having reviewed them literally comment by comment, I don't foresee that happening.
Okay, thank you. I would like to know about the dumpster, if there was a dumpster that's going to be required or not. And
There's no dumpster required, similar to what was done with the Collinsville Bank. The cleaning staff will remove any trash when they leave. They will take it off-site with them. And of course, again, anything that is any documents, it would only be personal trash, because anything else the bank has to dispose of in a whole separate manner. It's not going in the trash. So it would only be personal things.
was there anything in regards to the hours of operation that was determined by the planning office? Because that's written in here as discussion.
I don't believe that was finalized. I don't know what the bank hours.
Shannon, if I could, we have some information on that the bank will be open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. During the week, and 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday. Certainly expect staff to be there a little earlier or a little later, but those are the retail hours.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'll leave it up to the capable hands of the planning department to make sure that these are all abided by. They're really great points, and I hope that Bruce gets the credit. He put a lot of time into this, I can see, so I appreciate that. So no other questions at this time. Thank you.
Inez?
Thank you, and Matt, thank you for bringing up those questions. I had those too. I just want to just say it again. I hope there's no impact to Route 4, and consideration be given to residents and businesses in this area when it's constructed. It's an important corner. I get it. I understand what the project will entail. I love the historic piece of it, and we're able to preserve it. But in reality, this is a rough corner for all of us living in town, whether we're coming into town or leaving town. So I just hope that that's ironed out somewhere.
Scott?
Just that I like the others have said, I really appreciate the time, effort, and consideration put in by the applicant, and a lot of time actually, and with a good result. So thank you for that, and I think it looks great.
John?
My only comment would be I appreciate the work that Tim Eagles and his architecture review board has done, and I think it's really helped the town a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I only have one question myself. This is Barbara Brenneman. On the letter from the architectural review, there were 8 items that were recommended to be completed, and some of them have been completed. does the applicant openly accept all those additions made by that board?
Ms. Bernanis, Attorney Reeve, out of those 8 items, I think Mr. Eagles indicated that 7 of them have been completed and revised. The only, I'll call it a hanging chad, which is a bad phrase to use this time of year, but the only thing that's really outstanding, an item of contention, is the windows. And the ADRC was looking for the windows. The lentils were, I think Tim said he's fine with the 2-inch variance on the lentils, but the windows, that was item number 2, I believe, on the ADRC.
All windows.
Yeah, and that's something that Chase has given a lot of thought and a lot of consideration to. They did change the appearance a little bit, but they are not willing to go with a double hung window they just don't feel it's appropriate in the commercial setting. And I would say respectively that they compromised on every other item that the ADRC asked for over a year and a half, and 4 or 5 meetings, and input from 5 different architects, which wasn't always entirely consistent the whole time. So we're going to ask that you not impose that on us, and that you not send us back to the ADRC to have a discussion, which we don't think is going to bear any fruit.
The applicant wants the fixed windows to remain.
We do. And Hernan, do you have anything to add from
I just want to make that clear so that nobody misunderstands it later.
Hernan?
I think that you're right. Question number 2 has 2 items. We would change the side lights to 12. It matches the smaller windows. If you draw lines across, we'll still have the same eyesight, but it's not a double hung. That's the only item that we left out of the 8 questions.
Okay.
So Barbara, can I address you guys?
Tim Eagles.
Who is that?
Tim Eagles.
It's Tim Eagles.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
Tim
ma'am.
Eagles. So the 2 items, one was the windows, and there were two points to the thing. One was that the orientation of the divided lights would be vertical and not square or horizontal. What they showed us the last time were actually more vertical than what we've got in this elevation. These are definitely horizontal, which is definitely not a traditional look, nor would, at the era of whatever we're pretending this building would have been built, would there have been a look of a single monumental window unless we were in a factory or something like that. Hence the reason we were talking to them about either a simulated mullion, which we could do in a fixed window, so that it would have an appearance of a double hung. And Bob Sanford confirmed that that's very easily accommodatable in a wood window, which is what they want to do. So you buy a large single window, they just fake a thicker mullion in the middle, and then you subdivide the lights like we said. So if you look at the windows, the 2 windows below the Chase sign, you can see the divided lights in there have a vertical orientation. They're taller than they are wide. Then you go to the big windows and the ones above, and I'm pretty sure the last version we saw had 6 lights on the top in those the little windows. Now we're 4. So all of a sudden the mullions, the orientation, they're wider than they are tall. So I think that's a more important point than the divided, the double hung look. So, if
As of tonight, though, the applicant's not willing to do that. That's what I want clear on the record.
so this is the one they presented the last time, and it had a 6 light, so it was vertical on top. They came back this time and now there's 4, and all of a sudden the mullions are, the divided lights are horizontally orientated. So not really sure why that happened unless they misunderstood what we were talking about with the vertical orientation of the windows or something, but.
Well,
Or
what they're
vertical
presenting
orientation
is
of
what
the
we're
divided line.
looking at, so that's why I brought it up. It's different, yeah.
Appreciate it. And then Hernan, the only other question was on, Bob said that only one of the 8 things wasn't addressed, but did you guys address the jog and the clapboard on the east facade?
We did.
Perfect, thank you.
Originally it was 12 inches. It's now 18 inches.
Perfect. Somehow I missed that. I apologize.
It could have been me that I probably didn't say it.
So
Okay, thank you.
we have no desire to, not that we don't want to see these guys again. Yeah, we'll talk to them all day long if they want to talk to us, but we're just concerned about details, that's all. Not that we need to have another meeting, but we often review things just via email with no meeting, so that's everybody. And Jack's on the line here tonight. He can weigh in if need be or attest to that as well.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant care to make any additional comments before we go forward?
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, it's an aesthetically pleasing building. It's size appropriate for the site, and then given the proximity to Farmington Avenue, I don't think anybody wants a massive 2-story structure right out there. That does require a 5-6 vote from you to eliminate the full second story. And so, we need 5-6, and that's what the ADRC feels is appropriate. The historic preservation piece is a big piece. I don't know too many developers like Mr. Weiner who would go to the extra time and expense to preserve that building when he's not legally required to do it. And I think that really, weighs heavily on my thoughts about this project. With the ADRC, I guess we're down to this question of the window orientation, and Chase has considered that for quite a while. They've taken the ADRC comments into consideration, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to design the building and live with it, and it has to fit their program, and they just don't feel that what the ADRC wants on the window fits their program. As I said, they've given on every other point they've been asked to do. So we think it'd be appropriate at this point for you to approve this as submitted. So thank you very much for your time and consideration tonight.
Thank you. Hearing that, we'll close this public hearing. And we'll move on to a vote on JDA Farmington LLC, motion to accept the application for special permit and site plan approval.
Shannon, may I ask a question? I would like to make the motion. I would like to just clarify something before I make that motion. Do we need to have anything specific to the waiver that's involved in the motion?
No, it's just a vote, because you're,
5-6 vote.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Then I would like to, this is Matt Pogson. This is Matt Pogson, and I move to approve the JDA Farmington LLC application for special permit and site plan approval to relocate the existing building and construct a new bank branch at 784 Farmington Avenue, FC, FB zone, as presented, with the condition that all of the concerns in the engineering reports are addressed to the satisfaction of the town staff.
Ines St. James, second.
All right, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further conversation?
This is Matt Pogson. I would like to just make sure that everybody is okay with moving forward with the windows the way they are, or if everybody feels the need. What's that?
It was as presented.
Yeah, but he's asked, his part of discussion, he's making sure that everybody understands. That's okay.
Just to make sure if anybody would like to make sure that we consider the architectural review just open for discussion. Personally, I'm okay with the way that it is, but I just kind of wondered if anybody else felt as if it needed to be the suggested windows or not.
Michael Bowles. I just echo what I said before. I'm completely comfortable with as presented and the applicant's windows that they use in the application.
So this is John Bibbert. I'm not voting on this matter, but if I were,
So John, because you're not voting, then that, once we've gone to make a motion, then you can't comment on it.
I'll reverse.
Okay, anyone else have anything to say on this? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Are there any abstentions? Then the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, moving on to informal discussion from Metro Realty.
Yes, good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Thank you for persevering. This has been the functional equivalent of like 3 hearings or 3 meetings tonight. You've done a lot of heavy lifting. So thank you for bearing with us. With me this evening are Kyle Richards, Ben Tripp, Jeff Sager, and Peter Dunn from Metro, and Rebecca Auger and Tom Daly from Malone and McBroom. I'm just going to take a minute to just comment on the process, which is this informal discussion is a unique opportunity for the commission to kind of hear from the applicant in advance and to be freely freely speaking and open about your impressions of what you're about to hear. That's the purpose. It's really a unique opportunity. And so as the presentation progresses, I'd ask that you listen carefully. And if you have questions or comments or thoughts, this is a good time to raise them. It's beneficial to the applicant and it's beneficial to the community and the commission. So I endorse this process. I think it's a healthy dialogue. And remember, it's non-binding. So you can speak freely and not be worried or concerned that somehow there's going to be an I gotcha at the end. So the whole purpose is to have an open dialogue. So I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Auger because we have a lot of ground to cover. And again, you've been good sports listening to a lot tonight. So Rebecca, are you there?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're all set, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. So again, I'm Rebecca Auger, a principal planner with Malone and McBroom. I am a certified planner with the American Institute of Certified Planning Professionals. I also am currently the president of the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association. And I think Jeff and his team asked me to speak to you tonight just because this is your first application for actually landing your special innovation district zone. And so they wanted to provide a little planning context for you as you start to consider their conceptual development plan. So just wanting to go over a couple of items with you. I'm sure you're all aware as commissioners that your plan of conservation and development and your zoning regulations are really meant to complement one another and work in conjunction with each other, with your plan setting your policy objectives and priorities and your zoning regulations implementing the measures that are required to achieve those objectives. So when this commission amended your POCD in 2018 with its section on the Yukon Health Center neighborhood, you were recognizing this unique area in your community, and your objectives that you established in that POCD were to create a walkable live, work, play neighborhood. I'd also comment that you have regional and state plans that similarly recognize the unique nature of this neighborhood. And the regional plan, CROG's regional plan, identifies the neighborhood as a municipal focus area. The state plan identifies this as a priority growth area for the state and further calls out communities as well as the state to proactively address policies and regulations to provide housing options and lifestyle amenities that the market demands. And I think you've heard in an earlier presentation tonight that your economic development director has identified the need for housing of the type that you're going to hear about in this conceptual development plan. So when you look at the neighborhood as outlined in the red from your POCD amendment, in that area is very little residential development currently. And so in order to achieve that live-work neighborhood that you desire as expressed in the POCD, you're going to need to develop residential units. And there's very limited potential in the neighborhood given the extent of recent investments, especially in the life science clusters. In order to accomplish your objectives, you are going to need to find a way to develop residential units at a relatively dense rate. And the site that we are looking at tonight is actually called out, I believe it's as Area 1 I can't read it on my screen, I apologize, in this neighborhood plan as a specific development opportunity. It's at least a portion of Area 1. Thank you, Shannon. And it is currently zoned R80 and a small portion of it is ER. And under that current zoning, it would be very limited in the amount of residential development that could be achieved here. You can move to the next slide, please. So again, following the adoption of your amendment to the POC, you adopted this special innovation floating zone in order to codify your goals for the neighborhood. The zone that you adopted is a flexible regulation. It was intended to enable the type of residential development that is being proposed on the site, and as you'll hear more about later. But it is a floating zone, and you have legislative discretion to land this zone or not. When you set up the regulation, you established the bases for making the decision on whether to enact a zone change. The first being whether it's compliant with your POCD. And I think as you'll hear, the residential development is compliant with your desire to achieve a live, work, play neighborhood. The floating zone needs to enable development that is more in keeping with the community's goals than the underlying zoning. And as you'll see with R80 zoning on the predominant portion of the site, you're not going to achieve the type of residential development that the market is demanding and that you explicitly state you desire for this area in order to create that dynamic neighborhood in the Yukon Health Center area. And then finally, that the proposed project works in the neighborhood. And as you'll see in the later portions of this presentation, that the access and orientation to the site is towards Farmington Avenue. It's really feeding into the Yukon Health Center area, not to the residential development to the rear. There's a neighboring condo development and commercial development, and the proposed concept really adheres to your standards for buffering and screening from that adjacent single family residential to the rear of the property. With that, I'll pass it on.
Hi, it's Jeff Sager. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Jeff Sager, I live at 15 White Oak Road. Driving down Farmington Avenue, it's easy to miss all the incredible things that go on that stretch of land between exit 39 and the reservoir. If you walk through the buildings, you get a little better sense of what's happening. You've got Jackson Laboratories, New Yukon Hospital, New Yukon Ambulatory Care Buildings, Genome Science Buildings, Yukon Technology Incubator, and then on our campus, we have various outpatient surgical and interventional suites. When you walk through the buildings and start meeting and conversing with the incredible people who work here, that's the wow moment. That's the aha moment. That's when you realize that quietly, over the last 30 years, this neighborhood has transitioned from a suburban office environment outside a standalone hospital to a true life sciences and medical cluster. You have some of the smartest, most dedicated people in the world, scientists and researchers and healthcare workers working tirelessly to develop cures for diseases, to extend lives, and to improve the quality of lives. You could say an ecosystem has been established here, and different parts of that system interact and rely on each other. We saw that over the summer when Jackson Labs partnered with the state of Connecticut to increase COVID testing from 550 tests per day to 20,000. Like a true biological ecosystem, it interacts with its physical environment. The physical environment is the part where you and we come in. The discoveries, the growth, the success in this neighborhood is being driven by innovation. The pace of that innovation is increasing. Drivers of that innovation are the women and men recruited to work here almost always from outside this area. But recruiting talent is fiercely competitive. And our success notwithstanding, by any objective assessment, this neighborhood is handicapped by a lack of modern, highly amenitized, walkable rental housing. Our objective with this application is to start to fill that void. And if we are successful, we will change the dynamic of recruiting talent to this neighborhood. A second group of innovators, located less than a mile from here, are in Farmington for a group of the world's strongest global brands. We have Carrier, the world leader in heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems. The world's leading company for elevator and escalator installs and service. Stanley Black & Decker, providing the tools for builders and the rebuilders of the world. And Raytheon Technologies, creating the future of aerospace and defense in this country. Each of these is laser focused on innovation. And that innovation is driven mostly by individuals recruited to this area from all over the world. And most importantly, our third group, the women at UConn Health, who deliver the public health services that this entire region benefits from. We have endeavored to build this housing in this neighborhood since 2017. And in 2017, we highlighted the innovation taking place at Jax in the field of personalized medicine. The major difference today is new appreciation is developed throughout society for public and the importance of the work done by the heroes who work in the field of public health, who put their lives, their well-being on the line, all for our benefit. They oftentimes don't even know. The critical importance of these healthcare workers has been elevated in our communal consciousness. We can build the type of rental housing that UConn richly deserves. The only other place in Connecticut where you have life sciences and public health together in one neighborhood in such a major way. And there's been well over 1,000 units of modern amenitized rental housing delivered in New Haven in the last 5 years. And New Haven doesn't have the multinational corporations we have here in Farmington. The only modern market rate rental community built in Farmington in the last 30 years is a 120 unit community on Colt Highway. You know, a lot of times when new zones are created, it's to attract uses that don't exist here. But here, the public health critical mass, the innovators, they're already here. And I think we all want these people and these uses to stay here and to grow. but we believe they desperately need better rental housing. This commission has partnered over the last 30 years with institutions, with governments, with private developers to make everything we're talking about happen. I certainly hope that you'll partner with us in this initiative. Thank you for listening, and I'd like to turn it over to Ben Tripp.
Thanks, Jeff. For the record, Ben Tripp, Metro Realty Group. Shannon, if you could go back to slide 5 quickly. As was just highlighted, this stretch of Farmington Avenue is incredibly unique. Just within the immediately walkable vicinity of the subject site at 402 Farmington Avenue, there's tremendous activity in bioscience and technology. Jeff touched on some of the household names that you know quite well in UConn and Jackson Labs, but I wanted to focus quickly on some lesser known but equally important components of this ecosystem. eVariant, for one, located at 308 Farmington Avenue, is a young, growing, incredibly successful healthcare technology company with a mission to improve engagement between patients and their healthcare providers. Think if you've ever used an application or a website to help schedule an appointment, receive lab results, or just engage with your healthcare provider, that's what eVariant does. And they're so successful that they were recently acquired by Healthgrades, a large, over $100 million top line revenue company. Despite the acquisition, eVariant remains at 308 Farmington Avenue and is a critical part of what makes this dynamic ecosystem thrive. Their neighbor, the building next door, AdNet, a cloud computing and IT support solutions provider, has been listed as a top 40 fastest growing technology company in the state of Connecticut 4 out of the last 5 years. And then directly adjacent to the site, the Technology Incubation Program, their sole purpose, their sole existence is to support and foster the growth and development of the next big technology company. And that's just within the immediately walkable range of the site. So if you go to the next slide, please. So again, we can refer to that as the Exit 39 cluster. A 2-minute drive down I-84 gets you to Exit 37's quite different cluster at Finman Road. We've got major centers of employment for 4 publicly traded multinational organizations. These global brands are synonymous with excellence. Carrier, Otis, Raytheon Technologies, Stanley Black & Decker. The common thread between these large multinationals and the smaller up-and-coming companies that I mentioned previously is that they require access to talented employees to succeed or to survive, really. So if you go to the next slide, we'll just zoom out one additional level in the entire town of Farmington. So 32% of Farmington's grand list is commercial. And you see how that compares to some nearby towns. Now, we didn't get here overnight. The town of Farmington, it's taken decades of creative, forward-thinking planning decisions by current and past planning and zoning commissions that has led to Farmington's commercial base really being the envy of every other town in central Connecticut. So if you'll go to the next slide. And so to quantify, I think, really the heart of the issue that we're getting at, there's more than 4 million square feet of commercial and institutional space in the health center corridor. There are more than 31,000 employees in the town of Farmington, but there are only 120 modern apartments. We know that the corporations located here support the innovation zone and specifically residential applications within the innovation zone because we've seen their letters of support for our recent innovation zone text amendment. And you've also heard, again, multiple times that Rose Ponte, your economic development director's conversations with these local corporations, it comes up time and time again that access to high quality modern rental housing is critical for their continued success. If we go to the next slide, please. And so we talked about the large multinationals and the small dynamic technology companies, but it's critical that we do not leave out who may actually be most likely to be served by a new residential project in this location, which are both public and private. So we did a demographic deep dive into 299 Cole Highway, as Jeff mentioned, the only other true modern rental housing project in town. And we noted that 35% of the current residents at 299 Cole are employed in the healthcare field. And their job functions are range greatly from nurses to surgeons, researchers, professors. It really runs the gamut. And our thesis, and I think that this is fairly well proven, is that healthcare workers often desire a convenient, maintenance-free rental housing solution, given the fact that they work long hours, often have night shifts, and they don't really have, their lifestyle doesn't cater to a larger property that they have the obligation to maintain. If you go to the next slide. So 35% sounds like a big number, and it is, but I wanted to show you this is a snipping of the actual demographic report that we ran on 299 Cole. And you'll see the representation of the major hospital systems and the different job functions. But what really jumps off the page to me is where these employees move from when they move to Farmington. Now, we hear this tired narrative that Central Connecticut is unable to compete with the major metropolitan areas when it comes to recruiting talent. But we don't see that. From Boston, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Las Vegas, Palo Alto. I think these are the people, along with the innovators, large multinational corporations, these are the people that we seek to serve by delivering what is a sorely needed asset to this town. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kyle Richards to walk you through a little bit of how we propose to deliver that solution.
Thanks, Ben. For the record, my name is Kyle Richards with the Metro Realty Group. Thanks for staying up late with us. I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. So we feel strongly that there's no better place to satisfy this demand that Ben and Jeff have just spoken of than within walking distance to where the innovation is occurring and where the healthcare is being provided. So the subject parcel is 18.71 acres in aggregate and are shown in the aerial photo that you're looking at on your screen in the blue shaded area. So by way of reference, the site is located to the northwest of Farmington Avenue with shared access to the traffic light with 400 Farmington Avenue, which is the Cell and Genomics building of UConn. Across the street from Homewood Suites and Farm Glen Boulevard. There's already a paved driveway shown in the red dotted line on your screen, which provides access to the site. And we intend to install a sidewalk alongside the driveway that will connect the proposed residences out to Farmington Avenue to provide the connectivity and the walkability to the vocations. Shannon, if you could go to the next slide, please. So the proposed development will be concentrated on approximately 7 of the 19 total acres. You can see those 7 acres identified by the yellow border on the northern part of the site. Next slide, please. So getting right into our proposed development. What we're planning and proposing to you for your consideration and for your feedback to construct here is the most high-end and dynamic multifamily housing community that currently exists in Central Connecticut. So what you're looking at in front of you is a single 4-story building that wraps around over a half-acre interior courtyard. So the building's proposed to be 45 feet in height and has a break in it facing the southwest to provide good natural light into the courtyard. There are proposed to be approximately 150 residences made up of varying unit types, including studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms. There will be a total of 86 garages with both internal and detached, which we've found to be a very important competitive advantage to our communities. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, Shannon. So this is a sample elevation of our building. You can see the materials are predominantly brick and lap siding, a lot of glass. And what you're looking at is predominantly a ground floor of garages. Again, those internal garages that are so critical, and 3 floors of residential units on top. So the ground floor is predominantly garages, amenity space, mechanical rooms, and then 3 stories of residential units on top. The building will have a very large 2-story state-of-the-art amenity space, which we can get into in more detail. And again, feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions. Also in the building will be 3 elevators and individual outdoor patios for every single apartment. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, Shannon.
Yes. There you go.
So just to kind of wrap up, and then we'll pause and hopefully open this up for a discussion. But in comparing our proposed development to the regulations allowed within the innovation zone, first looking at impervious coverage ratios, our proposed development is under 20%, while 50 to 65% is permitted within the regulation. Density, units per acre, 15 units per acre is allowed, while we're seeking, our current design is approximately half that at 8. Building setbacks, which are the distance between the principal structure and the nearest property line, 40 feet is allowed. We're proposing 102 to 162 feet, depending on the side of the building and the nearest property line. And then the height, which I suspect we'll get into in a little bit more detail shortly, but we're proposing to a 45-foot maximum height, which is in accordance with that which is allowable within this innovation zone. So I think this is a good place to stop. You've heard a lot, it's late, and perhaps we can, anyone on the Metro team, we also have Tom Daly here from Mylone and McBroom, can answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, Patrick?
No, I mean, I'm just taking it all in. I have no questions right now.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, like Pat, just taking it all in. I agree. It's needed in the area. I'm certainly looking forward to see more of the proposal.
Matt?
Well, I think Kyle already knows I'm going to ask about the height. I thought that was something we had clearly stated when we made the amendment to that zone. Is that something? I can't find it in my email. I started looking for it to find exactly what the phrasing was. But can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, so the clarification within the zone, Commissioner Poxon, is that in order to go to 4 stories or the 45 feet in height, it requires a 5/6 vote from this commission. It's permitted, but again, it requires a 5/6 vote. So so the height for us, let's just jump right into it, because I think it's a really important point. And as you have identified, it was a topic of conversation when we were getting through the Innovation Zone text amendment. But as it pertains to height, there are many reasons that we feel the 4-story structure is imperative. So the first is smart growth Rebecca Augers here. She can also comment on this from a planning perspective. But it's the idea that a concentration of development in a compact and walkable area where the infrastructure already exists will prevent sprawl. So by way of example, if we made this structure 2 stories rather than 4, then the development footprint, so the disturbed area, would be approximately double. So twice as large for the same number of units. So that's one reason. The second, and this is also very important, but there's often a distinction made between height and number of stories, but there really shouldn't be. By use of a flat roof here, we're able to keep the total height under 45 feet, which is a widely established, and I wouldn't say accepted, but certainly prevalent height throughout Farmington. So the Midpoint Development District recently passed a regulation allowing for 45 feet in height for residences. And we don't really have to look any farther than across the street at the medical office campus and the morph zones, where there are several buildings that are the same height. So I would submit to you that I think those buildings fit in. You know, of course, Peter and Jeff designed those buildings 15 years ago now, but we like to believe they provide a good stature, but they're not overpowering for the area. And you know, we've received quite a number of compliments about the design and how it kind of agrees with its surroundings. But what I'd say is, Commissioner Pogson, and I think this may be where you're going with this, if the concern on the height and the 4th story is one of visibility, meaning is the building visible, which is not, you know, it's not something we entirely agree with, because this will be a well-looking building that we don't necessarily think should be obstructed from everyone's view. But I would submit to you that in this site, in this location, there really isn't anywhere in town where you could construct a 4-story building with less visual impact. So from Farmington Avenue, the building will not be seen. It's only until you snake up in 1,000-foot or so driveway will you begin to see the building. But I also think it's important to know that we've studied the perspective from the adjacent residential uses. So Shannon, if you could go to I believe it's the next slide. So this slide, for everyone's benefit, shows the distances between our proposed building in the center and the adjacent residences. So I think first, before we go through that, it's very important to note that there's no communication between our property and the few adjacent homes. And when I say communication, there's no vehicular connection, there's no pedestrian connection, there's no sidewalks, there are no roads. So the only thing that we share in common with the adjacent, and again, this is a few homes, the adjacent homes, is a common property line. So you'll see on the screen in front of you, there are 4 homes in proximity on Prattling Pond, and the distance between our structure and those existing homes ranges from anywhere from 220 feet to well over 800 feet. So these are very large distances away. And we frankly designed the building at the center to help to expand the distance from those residences and our building. But of course, you know, distance alone isn't the only consideration. It's not the only part of the equation when considering visibility. You also must consider the grades at which the buildings are at and any other trees or obstructions. So if Shannon, if you could go to, I think it's 2 slides. Yeah, skip over that one. So this is a chart, but basically what we have here is our site as compared to the adjacent residences sits in a very large hole. So there are 4 adjacent homes. I don't know why there are only 3 on this chart, but I know the 4th is over a 50-foot elevation difference. But what this chart is showing is that the finished floor elevation, which is the ground floor of the residences, is between 17 feet and 52 feet, depending on one of the 4 homes, higher than our proposed finished floor elevation of our site. So this isn't a case where our 4-story building is perched up on a hill that is visible to everyone. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Our building is set in a hole, surrounded by properties that are at a far greater elevation than ours. So between 17 and 52. So can you go to the slide before that, Shannon? And I'll finish with this and pause for, which I know will be more follow-up questions, and Tom Daly or Jeff or Ben or anyone jump in if you want to expand on this. But what you're looking at here is an analysis from Mylone and McBroom. We call this a section. And this takes into account all variables: grade change, distance, visual obstructions, existing woods, etc. So what you're looking at on your screen, on the left side of the screen is, and this is just an example for one of the 4 homes on Prattling Pond, but this is 42 Prattling Pond Road on the left side of your screen. On the right side of your screen is the proposed apartment structure. Those 2 buildings have a difference in finished floor height of 41 feet. So the finished floor elevation of the proposed building is 388, and the finished floor elevation of 42 Prattling Pond is around 430. And the structures are 435 feet away from each other. So in this section, you'll see a yellow line. That yellow line is what we call a sight line, a view line. And it highlights what someone might see if they're looking from the residential Prattling Pond home to our proposed development, what they might have to look through in order to catch a glimpse of our proposed building. So we were very conservative with this analysis. We took the sightline view from the 2nd floor of the residential home. And you can see that, again, in order for this to be visible, in order for someone from that residence to catch a glimpse of our proposed building, they have to look through a very extensive and dense existing forest, which has trees anywhere between 40 and 70 feet tall. Additionally, this regulation requires a very extensive planting in the buffer yard, which I won't bore you with all of the details of which provides for mature trees exceeding 30 feet in height, which we have obviously every intention of planting. And so I'll pause, but there's one other slide I just want to quickly show, and then I think it might be the next one or 2. Yeah, this is it. So just to give you a little appreciation for how dense this forest is between, on our site, but also in the area between our proposed development area and the residential homes on Prattling Pond. Again, the yellow area that you see on your screen is the development area. And it's hard to even catch a glimpse of them, but you can see little cutouts or little breaks in the forest. And those are the respective homes in proximity on the Prattling Pond Ridge. And you can see how thick the vegetation in the forest is in between those 2 sites. So I'll stop there. But, we intend to fully, it's our position that there will be limited, if no visual impact as a result of the significant grade change, but also the extensive and dense forest that exists between the 2 uses. So why don't I stop there? If anyone, Tom or Jeff or Ben, has to add to that, please feel free.
If it helps, I think you've very clearly answered my question. I'm satisfied with your answer at this time. I think it was very thoughtful of you to go through that, and I appreciate it. Other questions, unless you feel as if there's something else, I did have a couple other quick questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
As of right now, you have this highlighted yellow area. The red area is part of this acquired land. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And as of right now, that'll be remaining as is, but that's being calculated into that coverage that you are using, correct? The coverage numbers, the 19%, or I don't have that in front of me right now, but.
Correct.
Okay. Assuming that down the road, if this is a successful thing, I would assume that you're going to expand out here and use this property as well for something similar. So to help to mitigate that, are you proposing to keep a lot of that runoff and rain and all that on site? I know we're not doing site plans right now, but do you have plans and thoughts on all of that? Or is it something that you're gonna, on top of that, I know that's probably a lot of ledge there, so I don't know what kind of mitigation you're gonna be able to do and what, so do you have thoughts on that so far?
Yeah, that's a thoughtful question. Do you want to respond to that, Tom, or Jeff? Did you have something to add?
Yeah, Commissioner Parks and Jeff Sager. So the only thing, we really haven't studied the area that's outlined in red. Can everybody hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, you've got a bit of an echo, Jeff, but we can hear you.
I wonder where that is. Okay. The one thing that we are definitely going to do, it's not shown on this diagram, but flanking the southern 5 acres of our site are 2 land trust parcels. And I've had preliminary conversations with the land trust. Well, maybe you could, or I don't know, Shannon, if you know where it is, but of donating, yeah. And then also they have a parcel on the other side as well. But donating the southern 5 acres to the land trust. And there's no magic to the 5 acres. It could be more than that. We haven't really studied it. But that's the one thing we're certain that we're going to do, because that is an ecologically sensitive area. And they haven't discussed it internally, but I think it would make great sense for them, and hopefully they'll embrace it. The rest of the site, though, we haven't really looked at. It's difficult, like you said, though.
Okay. I guess a lot of that stuff will come down to when a site plan comes in.
Right.
I definitely am more concerned about neighbors that can see the building rather than seeing it from Route 4. So I will say personally, the visual you gave us of being able to know what the neighbors can see from their perspective was very helpful. So in the future, when you come to the commission, if you can bring things like that to us so that we can see what they're going to see, and maybe help to, if those people end up coming to these meetings, it might help for them to see that as well. So it was very thoughtful again, and I would appreciate it if we could continue to have those sorts of visuals to help understand the size and dynamic of this building. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Inez?
How many units? I missed that point.
We're proposing 150 apartments.
And I don't mean it the way it's going to come out, I'm sure, but like, I know we need housing. Will they be affordable housing? Like,
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So there will be no, we're not contemplating any affordable set aside, meaning any apartments that are expressly set aside for affordable renters, which are renters that have incomes less than the area median income. But what I'd say to you is that we are proposing a wide variety of apartments. So not just your standard 2-bedroom, 1,200 square foot apartment, but also apartments on the much smaller scale. So studios and even a few micro micro units, which accommodate folks at a lower income level. So we can deliver those smaller apartments at a much lower rent per month. And, you know, it's been our experience that in this area, there are, you know, it's well within the income range of, you know, not just your surgeon or your head of trauma at a hospital, but also your, you know, the folks with more modest incomes. And so that's really what we've been studying in terms of accommodating folks perhaps with more modest incomes. But also what you'll find in this area is that a lot of the researchers and some of the people, the younger people in particular who haven't yet formed families, are rooming together. So we've heard it continuously from Jackson Labs that there are, you know, and again, those researchers oftentimes when they're in their early years are not in their prime earning years, and they intend to room together. So we're looking at solutions for maybe providing a more concise 2-bedroom, delivering it at a little lower price point. But between the two roommates, it's at a level that's tenable for someone in those income levels.
Thank
If I could also add just quickly to that, Commissioner St. James, we've built 4 affordable housing complexes in town: Heritage Glen, Westwoods, Hunters Ridge, and Yorkshire. I think more suburban affordable housing in central Connecticut than anybody. We're building one right now in Berlin, and we just finished one in South Windsor. So we are huge proponents of affordable housing. The problem with this particular venture as it relates to the affordability is we do not know post-COVID if there's going to be any level of subsidy available in order to build and make the units affordable. Because of the astronomical cost of these things, you need some level of subsidy from the state. That's what we've always gotten from the state and in all the various developments that we've done. We do intend to apply to make some of the units affordable, but I don't want to commit to it. And that would be at 60% of median. I don't want to commit to it because I'm not sure post-COVID what kind of money the Department of Housing is going to have. But we are very enthusiastic about affordable housing. And if there's any way to introduce affordability here, we'll do it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that Kyle, you mentioned the layout or that the building will sit inside a hole because there's nothing small town looking about it. It's super modern. But it's not going to be visible from the road. Of course, traffic is a concern. That whole corner, I think Prattling Pond, in my opinion, and I know COVID, we have a little different driving patterns, but that's a horrible driveway. Just horrible if you want to head towards West Hartford or anywhere else. So that this should be interesting. I'm just, you know, like Inez as a person, I see lots of blasting. I just see a lot of, and I know you're leaving a huge chunk and I appreciate that, but the building seems absolutely huge. The last thing, and I know I'm kind of going on, I'm a little tired. Will this be, you talked about amenities and whatnot. Is it going to be like a lit up structure 24/7 to accommodate different shifts? Like, what is this? Is this going to feel like a home you want to come into, or are you going to have, I don't even know how to phrase my question.
Well, and you know, Tom Daly is on the call as well, but all of our projects are designed with 0 light trespass. And they'll be designed in accordance with the standards that the town prescribes relating to light and trespass. So I would say that in terms of lighting, this would be no different than Colt Highway, 299 Colt Highway. And as Jeff often notes, as you drive down Farmington Avenue, if you ever have the opportunity to after 10 o'clock, we're one of the few ownership groups that actually adheres to the hourly recommendations from the town in terms of turning off lights. So we take that very seriously, and we'd know that would be particularly important in this circumstance.
Okay, I guess that's it. And thank you for coming in front of us and getting our opinion. You didn't have to do that, but it's definitely greatly appreciated as a town person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott?
I'm going to recuse myself on this one. Thank you.
John? Is John gone to bed?
No, but let's see here. Yeah, I gotta bring my John Bibber.
I'll see him.
John Bibber, there, yep. John, you there?
Are you hearing me?
Yep, go right ahead now.
Okay. I think this is a great project in an area that needs housing for a lot of professionals who are going to be working in as many companies in this area. And I think that we've done a great job as a town in creating an area that has brought in a lot of business, and we need housing like this for the people who are going to work in our companies. And so I don't see anything wrong with this project as presented, and I hope it goes forward importantly.
Thank you, John. It's Barbara Brenneman. Just a couple of comparisons I'd like to hear. What's the height of 299? Is that two-story above the garage? How many stories is 299?
So 299 is 3 stories. I don't have the exact height in front of me, but one of the contributing factors, of course, to that design is that there's a gabled roof. So you've got 3 stories and then a large gabled roof on top of it. Whereas what we're proposing here is 4 stories technically, but a flat roof to mitigate the height and fall under the 45 feet threshold within the zone.
Now, does 299 have garages in the building?
Yes.
Okay. So you're proposing the same mentality that you have at 299, but you're going up 1 story. I'm just trying to, in my mind, visualize how high the building's going to be. You're talking about 150 units. How many units? It's like 120 and 299?
Correct.
I was trying to remember all these things. Are the garages at 299 enclosed with doors, or are they drive-ins?
They're enclosed with doors. So there are 6 buildings, 20 units each at 299, and there are 10 garages in every building.
Newly added garages.
And so there are 10 garages in each building. Those are internal on the ground floor at 299, 60 total. And then we have, and again, falling into the thesis of how important these garages are, Ben was recently in on an application for site plan approval to construct, I think, 3 detached garages.
Right. So all in all, it's not a whole lot bigger than what you already have at 299. And I can, as a registrar, I tell you that that place is moving all the time. They don't have a lot of vacancies over there, I don't think. This is kind of an exciting opportunity to meet a need that we've talked about for many years. And I think the growth opportunity that's been created in the medical community just pleads for this kind of housing. So I'm glad you brought it forward. I think that getting feedback from all the commissioners, I think if the commissioners drive by 299 and take a look at how that building looks, you're going to have a sense, different configuration, because this is kind of a horseshoe building, but the mass and the use, the location is fairly hidden with this when this one comes in. But I thank you all for presenting to our commission your ideas and your concepts. I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy for you, but I think it's especially healthy for us as commissioners to kind of get a sense of where you might be going with this site. So thank you for bringing it all in.
Could I just mention one more thing too, as it relates to that height? Is the fourth story of this building accommodates 47 units. So you've got the garages on the first floor, and we think. I'm sorry?
I said it makes, I'm sorry, I interrupted. It makes sense. The
Yeah.
garage is in city.
Right, and the garages, we feel, are an imperative because a lot of these people are highly remunerated, they drive very nice cars, and they want garages, and they don't like the New England snow because they come from California and the South and every place else. But in any event, if we were to lose those 47 units, I mean, it really doesn't work anymore. No, because we are going to develop this with an amenity package that's going to be the best in the marketplace. You 200 units to justify it, but we're going to do it for 150. If it was 100, it just doesn't work. And then then we're not, frankly, building this. We have to go back to the drawing boards. But I think it's important that everybody realize that that fourth floor has 47 of the units.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, this is Mr. Pogson. I would just like to add, I was commenting when we came in, Mr. Sager, when you came in with the Loman's Plaza application, and I specifically had pointed out that having the enclosed parking was a really good idea, and I'm very glad to see that you integrated that into this project. The only thing that I might add is security. And we've only seen a really small snippet of this, but since you're asking for our input, it might be something to consider having somebody somebody standing, what do they call that? A guard station or something to that degree to allow people in and allow people out. I think some of the, unfortunately, during this COVID situation and during some of the things that have been going on with our economy in general, it's caused a little bit more, a little more crime in our area. So it might be something to keep in the back of your mind to make sure that you're encouraging that you keep that area as secured as possible. I like the parking garages, that'll definitely help, but maybe something beyond that might be helpful.
Okay, we will take that under advisement.
Thank you, Jeff. We expect you to be the man of your word that you've been in the past for our town, so you do it upright.
We'll try.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Her planners report?
Oh, no. But I will say, everyone, if my commission members, please watch your email tomorrow morning. Instead of doing a question and answer right now on an upcoming matter, I will be sending you an email, and I do need a timely response tomorrow, preferably before noon. So if, to the extent that you can, I would like the feedback. It has to do with an upcoming application and hard copies versus electronic copies, et cetera. So it shouldn't be too, it's not a lot of time and effort on your part, but I do need the information so I can direct the applicant to get you the appropriate copies.
Okay, so then we'll move on to the minutes. We need a motion to approve the minutes for October 14th of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission.
It's Ines St. James.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Thank
Ines.
you. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 14th, 2020 Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting.
I second that.
Thanks, Mark.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. You are adjourned.
Yes.